Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham and this, of course, is the Mike Graham Show. As you can see from the sign behind me, it is Monday morning. It is the 29th of June, believe it or not. But don't worry, because there is a plan for the future. We came in this morning wondering whether we'd be able to remember what to do, first of all, which of course we didn't. So apologies if you think we started a bit late, 7:03. But there is a plan, and I've got Emma Wolf here, very good morning to you, to tell us what the plan is. What's the plan, Emma?
Well, we're going to raid the middle classes.
Yes.
What concerns me about this plan is Burnham is ominously saying it's his 10-year plan, which I think confirms all our worst fears. If only he'd said, I've got a plan for the next year, I'd say, OK, I'll just take it for another year.
But how about just rescuing us from the terrible trauma that we're currently in, right? Never mind the next 10 years. What about the next 10 weeks?
I don't want him in for 10 years. That's my problem with it. I don't want his vision for 10 years.
No. Sorry, excuse me, he's not even the Prime Minister yet.
He's not even the Prime Minister. He's been an MP for about as long as you've been wearing that suit. I mean, this is ridiculous.
I know, it is.
The man was does he know where Makerfield is anymore? He was barely MP for Makerfield. He literally leapfrogged over them. He was on that train down to London. All this stuff about the North. He was on that train down to Euston within seconds. You know, suddenly, I don't think he's left Westminster.
I know. I mean, he went
shaking.
Except in the sort of middle of last week, suddenly on Wednesday, he was taking the train back up north. Because he'd done his 2 days in London, and now he wants to split the kind of, the Downing Street operation, half in Manchester, half in... And a lot of people are starting to say things to me like, hang on a minute, all this business of north-south divide, what about Cornwall? What about Dorset?
Exactly.
Some of the poorest parts of Britain that nobody ever talks about. Are they going to get their own mayor? About that.
It's got to be Manchester. It's got to be Manchester, Birmingham, or Leeds. And also, these operations where they try and devolve, and I don't mean it, there's nothing wrong with devolution, there's nothing wrong with the regions having more money and all of that, absolutely. But first...
Well, there is actually, but I'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay, well, we can argue about that. But firstly, does Burnham know that he's running to be the Prime Minister?
Yeah.
Because he seems to now be split with like, I'm still the Mayor of Manchester, but I'm not really the Mayor of Manchester. Secondly, these things cost a lot of money. When the BBC moves half their operations up to Salford, you have to relocate everybody up to Salford for a bit of virtue signalling.
Yes.
Then didn't Channel 4 move half of their operation to Leeds?
To Leeds, they did.
Somewhere like that. And
it never works. I had
a
friend of mine, who you know as well, actually, used to go up to do a little slot on Radio 5 Live. And they would put him on a train from London, first class, up to Manchester, take him in a taxi from the station to the BBC in Salford. He'd be on for 10 minutes. They'd put him back in a taxi, back on a train, back down to London.
Crazy.
Insane. Absolute insanity.
And it costs so much money to do these things. And if it was real, if it was about something, this is about virtue signalling. This is about, look, no one ever said, no one's problem with the country right now is, I really wish there was a Whitehall in the north. That's not what people are worried about.
No.
Has anyone on the doorstep, well, not that we do doorstepping, but has anyone ever said, I really wish that half of Whitehall operations were split into Manchester?
No.
It's just...
And also the myth of all of this devolution stuff is that it's cost an awful lot of money and we've got more government rather than less government. For example, in Scotland, I happen to know about Scotland more than I do about Northern Ireland and Wales. Although Wales, they have to duplicate everything in Welsh, so there's a massive cost to all of the bills that they've introduced into the Senedd, right? But in Scotland, they hired something like 3,500 civil servants to occupy this civil service building for the Department of Scottish Parliament, basically, down in Leith. 3,500 more people, which is probably now ballooned to about 10,000. And there's an extra cost. I don't mind. If he wants to devolve power to the regions and to say, all right, give them the power to give people local jobs, give them the power to sort out the NHS in their area, whatever. But then you have to take that money from somewhere else. You can't just add it on. So say to those people, all right, I'll tell you what, we're going to do away with MPs in certain parts of the country. We're going to split the MPs in half.
All right, or every MP who is an MP of their constituency, because they're all MPs. You go back and you work there. Yeah. You all zoom in. You don't come to Whitehall at all. Don't have expenses.
That's a great idea.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Don't have second homes. Don't have travel costs. Don't have hotels in London.
I like it.
So Rees-Mogg or whoever stays in Somerset or Burnham stays in Makerfield and they stay there.
They do the
work
there.
And they don't come down. So what? And then what?
That would save us millions.
We're going to bulldoze the Palace of Westminster. I mean, they really haven't thought this thing through, have they? Because when he talks about his Whitehall of the North, what does he actually mean?
Yeah, because what they mean is that they want to spend more money, more public money, more taxpayers' money on more bureaucracy and the ability to tell you what to do in more parts of the country. So that, because remember when we were in the European Union, we used to do these things when I was in the papers of how many representatives have you got. You've got your local borough councillor, you've got your county councillor, you've got your MP, you've got your MEP, and then you have a secondary MEP.
And if you want to get your bins collected, there is no one who will help you.
So minimum 5 people representing every single individual in Britain. It's ridiculous. It's mad.
Plus about 23 councillors.
Yeah. Plus the mayors now that they want to put in. And it's a complete and utter waste of money. And all it is empire building by people like Burnham.
It is. It's empire building.
He wants to go, I'm in charge of all of this. Isn't it amazing?
And these metro mayors and regional mayors and stuff, that is, as you say, adding another layer of bureaucracy to the whole lot. What people actually want all around the country is for their local areas to be run better.
Yes.
For their budgets and for their councils not to be charging them more council tax. They don't want, half of Whitehall to be in their local... That's really genuinely not what people want.
How many times do you go around the country, as we all do in various different ways, shapes and forms? You go to different parts of the country. How often do you hear people going, do you know what's really great about living here is the council are really brilliant. They're really efficient and they empty the bins on time and they look after the streets and they cut the hedges and they do all these great... And you all see a policeman. No, nobody says that.
Everybody wants their local area to be better. And
because they're all rubbish, right?
And the thing is about government, yes, it is run from Whitehall, and that is fine. Same in America. America is a huge country. The seat of democracy, politics is centred in Washington. Same in France. It is centred in Paris. Same in Italy.
Yes.
We don't have a problem with the fact that Whitehall, OK, it's a bit unfair, and then the South-North divide, and we can all joke about that. It is in Whitehall. Burnham's thing about splitting all that up is just nonsense. It's going to cost so much money.
Yeah. The story that bothers me more about the size of the state, and I think we all know that the state has got an awful lot bigger, is there's a piece of the Telegraph today, right, in which it says that there are now more civil servants than ever before. In the last 10 years, right, there has been a 73% increase in the numbers of civil servants. And the now number is 525,000. And these are people just working in civil service departments in London, right? 525,000 people,
shocking.
500,000 people, and about 70% of them don't even bother going into the office.
Yeah, I know.
It's an absolute racket.
Really is.
And we're paying for all of it.
Massively concerned about Burnham's economic vision. I really, really am. I think he's going to tax everybody until the pips squeak. I think he's going to put, the market's already massively spooked. What was Louise Haigh, his unelected spokesperson?
Oh, yeah, what, the convicted fraudster?
I have a friend who says convicted felon, and every time I'm like, OK, she lost her mobile and didn't tell the police that she'd found it again or whatever it was.
Well, quite a few times, though. OK. More than once. And also, on one occasion, reported a stolen phone on the phone that she said was stolen.
Wait, is this her thing?
Yeah. She was like a serial phone remover,
it's very odd, this whole phone thing. I know, but I do laugh when people call her a fraudster or a felon.
Well, she is, though. I mean, she lost her job.
Who do they think they are? Who do they think they are?
Well, we were talking earlier because we're going to play a couple of clips from the weekend because the thing is that the barefaced lying now is happening right in front of your face. They're not even trying to hide the fact that they're lying, right? Because, of course, everybody and their uncle is asking for an election and all these cabinet ministers who were all, by the way, 2 weeks ago saying Keir Starmer's here for the long term, he's got 10 years, he wants to run in the next election.
They're all crawling out of the wood right now. It's safe now. They can come back out again. Now they've all
suddenly decided that Starmer's not the man and Burnham's the man, right?
Because they want a job. Because they want a job.
Let's have a look, first of all, Lucy Powell, one of the most hideous members of the cabinet, ghastly woman. She happens to be the deputy leader, believe it or not, of the Labour Party.
I want to ask you about something that you put on Facebook when Liz Truss resigned. Conservative Prime Minister resigned on the 20th of October 2022 after 49 days in office. You posted, "Let the public decide the next Prime Minister, general election now." Do you want a general election now so the public can decide their next Prime Minister?
Well, I think we were in very particular times after Liz Truss had crashed the economy, making big decisions that had nothing to do with what was in the Conservative manifesto, and we were all paying the price for that almost instantly in higher mortgage rates and all of that.
The principle is the same,
I don't think
isn't
it was quite the same.
Well, the principle is the same. Let the public decide on the next Prime Minister, you wrote. So that situation could apply to now. Do you want the public to decide on the next Prime Minister now?
Well, we live in a parliamentary democracy where the Prime Minister is chosen by MPs. That is the situation that we're in now.
You didn't say that in October 2022.
What we had then was two Prime Ministers in less than 2 months, one of whom came along and didn't listen to anybody around her. The big institutions that support this country took some big decisions for which every single one of us paid a very, very heavy price, in inflation going through the roof and our mortgage rates going through the roof after a real period of huge disruption.
So you don't think there should be a general election now?
Different time.
Is that not hypocritical?
No, I don't think it is.
Isn't it funny how hypocrites don't think they're being hypocritical? When you ask a hypocrite, do you think you're being a hypocrite? No, I don't think I'm being a hypocrite at all. What's going on with her teeth, by the way?
No, we mustn't.
Oh.
No, I mustn't.
It's
If I say what I think about Lucy Powell, everyone will say I'm being very unfeminist, because you can't criticise another woman.
Hang
I know.
on. Isn't this the same woman
It's
who
got
had
nothing to do with being a woman, but that's how it is.
Isn't this the same woman that had a go at Tim Montgomery for the old, the dog whistle thing?
Can we talk about Bridget Phillipson deciding, right to buy is over, but her family made 900% profit on their council house.
Yeah.
Right? She was so poor, she couldn't even take her clothes off in the winter. She went to bed with all her clothes on,
She's like
right?
a sketch from Monty Python, this woman,
The one who lived in the cardboard
we
box.
were happy, though. We were poor. We were happy. And we used to eat gravel for breakfast.
Literally eating gravel.
Yeah.
And when Starmer was talking about how poor she was as a child last week at PMQs, she was like sobbing for her own wonderful working class story behind
wasn't it
him.
Great? Yeah.
It was just so kind of embarrassingly. Anyway,
they all make out like they've literally lived in caves and suddenly become brilliantly successful at life.
Her and Angela Rayner make a real thing of being, working class. There are so many smart, clever, funny working class people who've pulled themselves up, who've come from nothing,
who haven't just been sucking on the public sector teat
they don't go on about
for their entire lives.
And also they help others.
Yeah.
And the Bridget Phillipson, Angela Rayner thing that really makes me angry is they're the ones at the helm of this social housing bill, which is ending the right to buy for other poor kids and other poor families.
Well, they just pulled the ladder up, didn't they?
They pulled the ladder up. And that's what it is. It's not, I don't care where they come from. I don't know how on earth we got onto that. Back to your friend, Lucy Powell.
But Lucy Powell, who literally is just lying there, not only pretending to tell the truth, but actually just barefaced lying. She said, in one sentence, which is laughable, we live in a parliamentary democracy where the Prime Minister is chosen by MPs. Incorrect. That is not what happens. We have a general election, and the people who vote for the party with the most votes is the party that then forms a government. And the leader of that party becomes the Prime Minister. So they know what they're voting for when the person runs for Prime Minister, right? So what we don't know is that Andy Burnham was not on the ticket. He wasn't even trying to be an MP. Wasn't an MP
of that party. For the mandate that we didn't, by the way, vote for.
So effectively, what you could do, apparently, according to Lucy Powell, is that they could get into power and then they could ring me up and go, Mike, how do you fancy being a Prime Minister? And I'll go, yeah, great, fantastic. Here's a safe seat for you. Why don't you just come in, even though they didn't actually vote for me. Now, that's what they're doing.
That's what they're doing. Steve Reed, wasn't he out yesterday saying exactly the same thing? No one wants a general election. No. And actually, the polling shows, I think nearly 50% of people have said, of the British public, have said they would like a general election.
A majority definitely wants a general election, Well, let's have a look. This is him talking to Camilla Tominey on GB News.
In a minute, but sorry, I just need to point out this other hypocrisy. Following Liz Truss's resignation in October 2022, someone tweeted, #General Election Now. Guess who that was, Steve Reed? Andy Burnham.
But back then, I think the public wanted a general election. We were facing our third Prime Minister in 2 months, and Liz Truss had crashed the economy. Boris Johnson had resigned because all of his ministers quit in protest because he'd been holding lockdown parties in 10 Downing Street. They were in chaos. We are not. This is a smooth transition, and through it all, I'm going to keep focused, as we all are, on the British public and delivering the change they want to see. I hope now we can stop talking about personalities and get onto policy, because that's what makes a difference to people's lives.
I think we're talking about democracy, aren't we? So it's OK to have a general election now if the Tories are failing, but not if Labour are.
This year, do you know what? Figures this week, Social house building is up by 25% compared to last year, and last year we built more in 1 year than in any previous year for 40 years since records began. That is what matters.
They're such liars, aren't they? I mean, we should have like one of those the sounds, you know, when you go bing, every time they tell a lie, the bing, because he'd be doing it every 5 seconds. You know, they haven't built more houses than anybody else in the last 14 years. They have not improved the lot of anybody. They have not improved the economic situation. They have not created any growth. They have not stopped the boats. They have not reduced the NHS waiting list. All of the things that they say they've done, they haven't done.
Well, the immigration thing. I mean, I'm genuinely. I don't have time for Shabana Mahmood, but
Mahmood.
I say Mahmood, but you said, oh, why do people go Mahmood?
Well,
so now I go
Mahmood.
Mahmood.
I mean, I say it jokingly.
Well, I sort of say it slightly tongue-in-cheek, Mahmood. I don't. Anyway, does she not get that people want the opposite thing? She's announcing now that they're loosening up. We're going to have more. I mean, surely...
She's actually now touting for more refugees to come here.
It's really odd. I thought even the most deluded member of the Labour Party or Labour voter had finally got the message that we are full up and that the British people have kind of had enough and don't want, just for now, if that's okay, just can we have a bit of a pause? We don't really want any more new arrivals from anywhere. Right. And literally, they've just announced they're loosening up all the rules. It's going to be great. You can all have them in your homes. Right. You can get a grant. What?
Yeah.
What did Mahmood just announce? Please explain it to me. I know.
Well, this is the trouble, right? Because again, they still pander to the left wing of their party, and the left wing of their party, who are all demented morons, who think that the answer to a failing economy is to import more people and give them cheap jobs. That's not the answer. They've been trying this for 20 years. The Tories tried it. It doesn't work, right? What they need to do is get the people who are already living here into work without bringing anybody else in that has to be supplied with benefits, which is what will end up happening, because these refugees will come into Britain, and I guarantee you that even if only 50% of them end up on benefits, that's another 300,000 or 400,000 people who are taking money out of the system.
Did you see in the Saturday papers there was a story which really made me angry? It's front page of the Times about Polish people leaving. And the Polish embassy, government embassy, was reminding them just before they leave to make sure they apply for their benefits from this country as they're going back to Poland, which, by the way, is an economy that is doing brilliantly, is absolutely smashing the records.
They're spending about 4 or 5%.
They don't want to come here. No, they do not.
They're
Poles
spending 4 or
back.
5% of their GDP on the military as well, because they're a bit closer to Russia than we are. And they're booming. And Poland is booming. Guess what? They haven't got very many immigrants.
So Poles who are going back can get a relocation and a kind of job searching benefit here, and they're being reminded by their government to apply for that benefit, because you can't apply once you're back in Poland. So we are literally paying for people, wealthy Poles, and you can't call, we're not racist, they're not white, brown, or anything. Wealthy Poles, intelligent people, going back to their own country, taking benefits from this country back with them. I know. And getting it while they're back there.
Well, even 20 years ago, when my kids were born in Scotland, we had friends who were Polish who had their kids in kindergartens in Scotland. And they would be telling us, we're going to move back to Poland because we get to keep the child benefit. And they still were getting paid child benefit, even though they were living in Poland.
And that is really, really unfair.
In the world who does that,
You can't claim that is that they've fled a war-torn country or anything.
No.
You know, that is out and out ridiculous.
Well, the whole thing is ridiculous. I mean, we've now got stories. I know we've got to play a couple of chats as well, because we've got some good messages coming in, so please do.
Also, I've just had a response from Andy Burnham. Have a quick look at the screen.
Oh, yeah, go on.
All right, let's see what the bullshitometer says. Wow, straight into the red. That's a lot of bullshit.
He looks a bit like Andy Burnham, that guy.
That was.
There's Andy Burnham with an American accent. I wouldn't be surprised if he's done that. But yeah, so the other story that we've got today about immigration is that they've lost apparently 20,000 criminals who came into this country, right, were sent to prison as migrants, right, have now been released from prison in order to be deported, but who have now managed to gain the right to stay in this country, because you know how you do it? All you have to do is get a lawyer who the country will pay for, so I'll pay for your lawyer, and all you've got to say is that it was out of your control how you were brought to the UK.
That is absolutely
And now
shocking.
you can't be deported. 20,000 dangerous men who have been in prison for dangerous crimes, violent crimes, who are now wandering the streets of the UK.
But you're not allowed to say that. Anything you try, any expression of that kind is far-right racist.
Well, not on this show, it's not. How about this from Alan? The country's Mahmoud... Oh, sorry, you moved it. Well, I can't read that quick.
Yeah,
Crikey. Here we go. The country's Mahmoud has mentioned are nearly all Muslim. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter where they want to bring them from. At the end of the day, we don't need them here. No matter what the nationality is, we can't afford to house any more refugees. Birmingham's new Lib Dem Tip Whisperer coalition following former Libel promise to increase council tax and decrease to fortnightly bin non-collections, says Mr. Gillespie. Yeah, I mean, the idea that Burnham wants more locally run sort of economies, when you look at all the locally run economies and realise how useless they are, right? Mike, UK Live Online, weekend show, ? Please, says Cindy.
It's coming.
Well, we're working on all of that. We've got all sorts of ideas and all sorts of individuals who would like to do shows, and we plan to do that. But of course, you have to work at the weekends in order to have a weekend show. So you know, we'll be getting there. Simon, super chat, thank you very much indeed. We should do the poll as well, shouldn't we? Because we've got Wimbledon fortnight beginning today. So we thought, what is the most British thing that you can think of? Is it Wimbledon? Is it bus replacement services, which is my personal favourite? Is it test matches? Or is it beer gardens? At the moment, beer garden seems to be winning.
Oh, good.
33%. Yeah, it's quite
Nothing
close.
wrong with
Wimbledon,
that.
29%. I was fortunate enough to go to Wimbledon last year, twice.
Yeah.
In the same week. That's
brilliant.
And I was there for the ladies' final, which was bleeding awful actually, because it was 6 love.
Yeah.
And so we retired after the first set to the bar.
What are you guys voting for?
I would say bus replacement services. Because I don't know any other country in the world that does it as well as we do.
They do, don't they?
I mean, you know.
Maybe beer gardens, I'd say.
Yeah.
Haven't seen one for many a year, but
I was actually in one yesterday.
The image of a beer garden always makes me feel
Would you
happy.
have any cash spare to go to a beer garden, Emma?
Well, no, it's just the kid. I mean, I cycle past them and I hear people merrily getting drunk in the beer garden, and I go to Ludo, do you know what? If I didn't have a child, I'd be in there getting drunk. And he goes, let's go, Mummy. I said, no, I can't. I've got you.
Well, you could always have, because I was...
So wait for the social services to be waiting outside.
My daughter arrived for a week yesterday, or Saturday.
Oh, lovely.
And so we went for a little run down to the beach, and unfortunately couldn't take Ziggy because he can't get in the car. It felt really sad. It's the first time I've been to the beach without Ziggy for ages, right? But I took her and her brother, and we went to the beach and wandered about. It was lovely, quite windy, but very nice. And then as we sort of took a scenic route home, and we ended up, and we're going past this pub that I used to go, which is called the Smugglers Inn, down in, not far from a place called Norman's Bay. And funny enough, where the Normans landed. Yeah. And had a lovely, just sat out in the garden. And I had a non-alcoholic beer, believe it or not, because I was driving. And after that, I had to drive to London. And actually...
They're not bad, are they?
Non-alcoholic lager now is not bad. And I'm not, you know, people think I've gone mad.
But same with, there are lots, I know we argued about this around Christmas.
Yeah.
I claim there are lots of non-alcoholic wines and non-alcoholic Prosecco and champagne. They're actually okay. What you do notice is if you have your non-alcoholic beer, then you have a proper beer and you go, wow, that's really good. But if you just have a zero Guinness or a zero beer or whatever, it is okay.
Yeah, one bottle and it was
they don't taste disgusting.
No, it's a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah,
and I don't find that with the wine, to be honest. The non-alcoholic wine I'm not really keen on. But anyway, listen, I've got an update for you from last week's betting scenario.
Right.
Because I know that was how
I can hear the sound. Can everybody
hear
the sound of backpedaling?
No, she didn't get it. It's all right. It's only Monday. So after you left on Monday, we discovered something which I think changes the material
I know
facts.
what you're going to say, that you claim that he was resigning on Saturday night.
He did, yeah. It came out, he resigned, he decided to resign on Saturday night, right?
We don't know that decision.
Yes, we do.
The bet was, is he still the legal tenant of number 10? And we have that on camera.
I don't remember the words legal tenant.
Legal tenant. Is he still
do you
the
remember
legal...
that, Booch?
No. We have it on film. We have it. Charlotte will find it. There is a clip.
Yeah.
It was the week before the bet.
Right.
We reset out the terms. We said, if he is still the legal tenant after the summer solstice, which is June the 21st, which was the Sunday, we came in, we did the show on the Monday.
Yeah. Listen, I've got the money here, right? So I'm not worried about the words of legal. I mean,
how do you know that he resigned on? How do you know that he resigned on Saturday night?
Because a very reliable source told Dan Hodges that, and Dan Hodges wrote it, right?
Well,
now, Dan Hodges has been ahead of the curve on all of this, even though he won't come on my show for some reason. I don't know why. So here's £50. I couldn't get a £50 note, I'm sorry to say.
Right.
And I think we decided we might give it to charity, didn't we?
We're going to give it to charity.
So I don't know how we're going to do that. Would you like to do that, or should I do it?
We're going to decide what charity to give it to.
Yeah. I think we should give it to We Serve, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
The Military Veterans Charity.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to donate to them anyway.
Well, actually, they're not a charity. So how about
actually, they're not a charity, are they?
Storybox.
Who? Squaddy box, yeah. This is for homeless veterans, so they have an address. So
Okay.
would you be happy with that? I mean, it's technically your money, so you do what you like with it.
I was going to give it to another
You can
charity.
go and buy a bottle of Dom Perignon if you want.
No, I'm not going to buy a bottle of Dom Perignon.
Or like Nigel Farage, you can buy a Ferrari with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a gift.
Well, I mean, you know, it's...
Is it a gift or a bet?
It's a bet.
So it's not a gift.
It's paying your wages.
There it is.
Okay.
Is it tax-free?
It is tax-free.
Is it tax-free?
Because you remember, there used to be a thing when you went to the betting shop, and I'm not particularly a betting aficionado.
How did it get to 50 from 10? It was Pooch's thing about 5 to 1, and I don't know about odds.
It was his idea that because I wanted double or
no,
nothing.
I'm going to choose a charity, and then I'm going to send you the thing showing you which charity I've chosen. Okay.
All right then.
Good. Well, thank you, Starmer.
You can do the old
one good thing that came out
the Sydney
of
Green Street line from Casablanca. Naturally, there will be incidental carrying charges, so you could remove £10 for yourself.
Yeah, booking charges.
Yeah, booking charges. You know.
But I think that one good thing that's come out of Starmer's reign is that a charity will benefit.
Yeah. That's about the only thing.
Have you done the poll? What will Starmer do next? Yeah, we did that.
Yeah, we did that, yeah. I mean, we could do it again later.
Because he now wants to be the chief...
Look at this from Grant. How dare you? Check the notes, Emma, they might be dodgy.
I know, exactly. I'm going to run them through one of those machines.
Yeah.
You know,
well, actually, while you were there, who's on them? Because, you know, they keep...
Queen, and Queen.
Oh, the Queen one's good.
But they're changing... we should keep hold of these because they're changing them all to animals.
Got another one from I.
Well,
wow.
Not paying up. I thought he might have paid in pennies. Yeah, well, I mean,
And can I have an update on the ghee? Is it gone?
The ghee, yes. It's still in the fridge.
Oh, no.
I
knew it.
I haven't done anything with it because I haven't really... The trouble is, my week sort of concertinas into madness. Like, start on Monday, I'm relatively sane, right?
Yeah.
Relatively well slept, well rested. I don't drink usually on a Sunday. I'm usually pretty compos mentis. Tuesday, normally, I go to the gym. Tuesday's normally the same. By Thursday, I've kind of careered off the road, and I'm kind of, you know, when you see those films where the guy's in the car and it's just like go down a ravine. Yeah. That's what it's like. And so by Friday, I'm kind of like,
and then you stagger to Ziggy in the countryside. Recover that.
We try and recover.
It's called
and
rehab.
Back to Monday. So there's a kind of, it's just a sort of a downward spiral. So I hadn't done anything with the ghee. So by the end of last week, I think I was out. Was I out Wednesday and Thursday?
I mean, there's a 10-year economic plan, guys, but this is the important stuff.
Yeah,
How
there
Mike's
is a 10-year economic plan.
Yeah,
Tax rate on middle class is coming. I'm just unbelievable.
It really is unbelievable.
I thought someone else was producing the show. I thought it was me, but someone else is apparently.
It's Lulu Rose. Shut up about the effing ghee. It's boring.
Sorry.
Okay, Lulu. What should we talk about instead, Lulu? Why don't you get Lulu to give us a subject to talk about?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Please, Lulu.
Come on, Lulu.
I have a question for Lulu. Where is Burnham going to deliver this big speech? Where is he having the effrontery? I mean, is he going to take over?
Well, it'll have to be in North, won't it?
Up north.
Presumably, it'll have to be in North because, you know,
I had a vision of him on top of Big Ben.
Maybe he'll do it on the top of the train, like one of those Hindi movies, you know, when the guys fight on the top of the train. Maybe it could be that.
Because he's so important. I could see him literally on the Palace of Westminster.
Yeah, absolutely right. He's so conceited. I think he's the most conceited politician we've had for quite a long time.
It's the presumption, isn't it? It's the idea that he's giving this vision and he's barely been an MP for a week, maybe 10 days.
And I hear that, Emmy, you'd want Starmer back.
It's not that, but by comparison, I'm starting to feel quite nostalgic. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Because quite a few
still
of
awful,
us.
Though. Can we not have somebody different? Because I can't go back to Starmer.
Who?
Well, I don't know. Let's have an election. Let's have an election. That's what I'd like to see.
Absolutely, but one Labour MP who would be better than Burnham or Starmer.
I know. It's hard to think of one.
But I'm finding the Burnham years worse than the Starmer days of years.
Well, Burnham's only been in for 10 days.
I know.
As
it feels
an MP,
like years.
And he's already making out that he's leading the country.
It's terrible.
He's not even Prime Minister.
It's really bad.
You know, what if somebody challenges him and he doesn't get there? I wish somebody would challenge him.
I wish someone would challenge him.
But they've got no cojones, these people.
It would look so much better. Why doesn't he at least get Lammy and a few of them, Miliband, to challenge him?
Mastermind.
I know, hilarious. Wouldn't it be comedy?
Lammy's still going, look, I didn't know there was a new Prime Minister. He hasn't worked it out yet.
I don't know what a cervix even is.
No.
I mean, it would be such comedy if Lammy would at least, he needs a competition because he got in unopposed at Makerfield, pretty much unopposed, and he's now going to have this coronation.
Yeah, unbelievable. A couple of quick stories to mention. That case of the transgender nurse up in Darlington has cost us 125 million quid. The NHS spent 125 million pounds of taxpayers' money to defend that
and
case.
do you know how many babies have died because of the underfunding of maternity services and the lack of midwives?
Shocking.
And it's shocking.
Absolutely shocking. We've done these civil service. Here's one: the rail chiefs who refused new signals at that site where the train crash happened because they said it was inappropriate and it wasn't necessary. We know that the driver went through a red light shortly before the accident that injured 100 people and killed him. Absolutely shocking. Harry and Meghan.
Oh my gosh.
Right. They're coming,
drama
they're not coming.
rolls on.
They're frightened
Will
to come.
Won't they?
Will they, won't they? What's going on with that?
Right. So the police protection that Harry was meant to get an answer from in March, and now they've said they've paused it because it's not very important. It's just not it's not a priority for the country.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know whether he's getting police protection. So this early July, they were going to come in early July. They were going to pre-launch the Invictus Games in Birmingham a year to go until that. And hang around. Oh, and they were going to go to Diana's grave, presumably with their Netflix crew, and film all that.
Yeah.
Really respectful,
really,
you know.
Really grim, that, isn't it?
They haven't been here. She and the children haven't been here since 2022. Lilibet has only been... Lilibet? What name? She's only been here once, and Archie's only been here... I mean, they're 5 and 7,
Have they
these
even
children.
seen their grandfather?
I wonder whether Charles... Yeah, Charles met her once in 2022. Anyway, so now it looks like Meghan and the children aren't coming. I think Meghan's got frit. I think she's realised that when she appears anywhere in public in this country, she's going to get... And she doesn't like that.
No.
She's not one of those people that can kind of smile and wave it off. She just wants to be adored.
Yeah. Well, remember that great clip where they went and sat down in an arena somewhere, and I think it was a military thing, and they thought that the crowd were all cheering for them, and it turned out they were actually cheering for who was coming on the stage, which was a military band or something. And she's sitting there like,
looking around like this in a ball gown. I know.
I'm here. And it was
people
like,
have barely even noticed that they're in the...
Shocking. Absolutely shocking.
So maybe Harry will just come on his own. But I mean, Harry's security is so important. It's such a crucial matter, Mike. Do you remember when he was filmed on those Ring doorbells, wandering around Chelsea?
Looking for somebody.
Looking for the party, or looking for somebody, or some staff, I don't know what, he was looking for.
He maybe lost something.
8 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Very dodgy. That's how much he needs police protection.
Yeah. Very, very weird people.
My quick comment here, I like this.
Has Lulu come up with anything else for us to talk about?
I like this.
No? Change the car or adapt it for Ziggy. OK, John, I'll do that, I'll get on to Milan immediately.
Maybe you could get a mobility car.
Well, do you know, the only thing that he could get into...
Well, I was thinking a sidecar or a little dragger behind the car.
Well, we're trying to teach him to walk up a ramp, and it's really hard. He just won't do it.
His legs just
his
giving out?
back legs are the problem. He can't propel himself up to jump, right? And the other thing you could get is a horse box. Did you actually think about this? A horse box which you could just walk into.
Yeah, or like a big trailer thing that they put on bikes.
Is, though, once you get him to the beach, because the beach has got a lot of big pebbles on it, he was really struggling to walk on that because his back legs couldn't support him. It's really sad. But, you know, he loves his walks, and we take him around just the farm. You know, I took him out on Sunday morning, and he was in it. Although I nearly lost him on Sunday morning because I got through this little kind of glade that I was filming in, and I've got this selfie stick now, so I assumed he was behind me, and I got all the way through, and he wasn't there. I looked behind, he wasn't there, and crikey! So I went all the way back up, and it's a sort of private road, so it's not very busy. And then I saw this woman with a hat, and he was chatting to this old lady with a hat on who was giving him biscuits. Right? So he clearly decided just to hang around with her.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. But anyway, it's a shame, but it's what happens, unfortunately.
It is, and is he old?
Yeah, he's going to be 12.
Oh,
you know,
so he's had a really good life.
He has, and he's had a wonderful time, and he's a beautiful dog. And I don't want to even talk about it yet because it makes me sad.
I know.
But anyway, he'll be okay for a while. Longer.
Yeah, of course.
One final one: the church. We've got to talk about the church, right? Because I haven't really looked into it much. But,
our new Archbishop.
Our new Archbishop of Canterbury.
London. No, Canterbury. Malawi?
Yeah, I can't remember her name. But she went to the Middle East, apparently, and started attacking Israel.
Yeah.
Right? So went and said how wonderful it all was, apart from the warmongers of Israel. And you kind of go, sorry, that's not really your job.
Really, really not her job.
This is, for me, what is wrong with Britain. The pressure on vicars to be loud and showy is making life difficult for neurodivergent priests. According to the Church of England.
And they're giving it a title of ableism. So if you're like able to, you know, project and be chatty, maybe, you know, like the bishop, able to actually talk to people, which is quite, I would say, people skills.
Yeah.
When you're a man of God or a woman of God,
yeah.
and you're talking to people, maybe delivering the odd sermon from your pulpit, isn't that quite important?
I don't understand what's going on here. Some of the priests surveyed spoke of the pressure of trying to appear typical.
Yeah, because
one said, I frequently have to come home and lie on the floor to literally ground myself after the demands of playing the neurotypical minister
Yeah, because
part.
this is the whole thing about neurodivergence. I'm not neurotypical. Rather than
what does that
being...
even mean?
Well, everyone's different. But now we have to label it. Now everybody has to have a special need. Rather than just being, oh, I'm very outgoing and you're quite shy, you're quite sociable and I'm quite, you know. We used to call it introverts and extroverts, and they're just making it into a thing.
Apparently some vicars struggling with Tourette's syndrome. That'd be funny, wouldn't it? Imagine going down like a sermon and getting the old effing and blinding vicar. I think it'd be great.
That's actually a good comedy character.
That's a great comedy character. Well, do you remember Father Jack? In Father Ted, drink! You know, that guy, women! It was brilliant. This is insane, though. What is wrong with people?
Well, what is wrong with people? As I say, everybody's just different. Everybody's personality is different. Every single one of your friends is different.
Yeah. I mean, people say to me, you're a bit mad.
Now it's neurodivergent.
Yeah, but apparently you can't say that to me. You're a bit mad. You can't say that.
No,
because
you can't
apparently
say that.
that's too much of a catch-all phrase. It's insane.
Really sad, isn't it?
It really is. We're talking to Dr. Gavin Ashenden later on because one of the things we wanted to ask him about, and this is technically about the Church of England as well, was King Charles at the weekend came out and said that he wanted to be not just the leader of the Church of England faith, but he wanted to be the leader of all faiths.
All faith.
Which is technically not part of the constitution that he supposedly signed up to. So we'll talk to Gavin Ashenden about that and see what he makes of it.
Stephen Barrett would be good on that as well, wouldn't he?
He will.
Yeah.
Very, very
He
much
gets
so.
very angry about the Constitution.
He does. Lulu wants to be banned.
Here, look, no.
Oh, this is great.
I was hovering over the ban button, Mike.
No, don't ban her. Apologies, Michael Emmett. Heat's getting to me. Please don't ban me. Lulu.
Oh, Lulu, we love you.
No, we don't want to ban you.
We love you, but we just felt a bit... I felt my feelings... You have big feelings, right? My feelings felt a bit hurt when she said that we were boring.
We're boring, yeah.
So should we all...
I think
we
we should have
thought
a
the Gee story was quite fun, Lulu, and we felt a little bit hurty when you said that we were boring.
Yes.
So can we all be friends now?
Maybe you could buy some ghee with that 50 quid and send it to Lulu, and she could
I could use it as sun cream.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the thing about... Maybe we should have ghee corner. Should we have ghee? We talk about it every morning.
Okay, well, I've got
Things
to
do
go.
with ghee.
I've got to go if the school is reopened after the deadly,
How long has it
deadly
been
heat wave.
shut?
Well, a week.
A whole week?
I got into, I'll tell you another day, I got into such a massive row with the head teacher of this school. I almost was violent.
Can you get some tax money back because they're not
I'm
running
going
the
to start
school?
charging them.
Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully I'm off to do the school run right now. But next week I will give you the precursor, the sequel to the Gee story, which is when I had to order in bulk, and it was very funny. I thought it was funny. Lulu will tell us and we're boring.
She will tell us. She can now be. She can
I
be
still
the
think
arbiter.
it's quite funny. 3 weeks on.
We could have a Lulu-ometer, right? If it starts to hit like the red section, we have to stop talking about it.
P corner as well.
P corner, yeah. Well, we used to have one of those when Ziggy was a puppy. It wasn't so much a corner as the entire floor.
No, you've misheard. He said Gee.
No, P.
No, he said P.
P.
He said P corner because we had a pea conversation on Friday because apparently there's going to be a shortage of peas because of the heat.
Yeah.
And so
I'm worried
you're
about
going to have
that. I
to
love
stock
peas.
up on
I love a green pea.
I know. We talked about peas all morning. It's extraordinary. Anyway, Emma, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for popping in, and good luck with the school.
Yeah.
It's going to get hot again at the end of the week. I'm sorry. Just telling you. It's 7:40 already. I guess, is Edward Hughes here?
Yes, he is.
Time for some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. In politics, the Knob of the North is delivering his first major leadership speech today in Manchester. He's expected to pledge greater devolution, pushing power and decision-making out of Westminster to regions and local communities, including plans for a No 10 North to drive growth nationwide. The UK continues to swelter under an intense June heatwave, with temperature records broken multiple times last week, peaking at 37.3 degrees Celsius and triggering red heat health alerts. What a load of cobblers. In sport, England cricket captain Ben Stokes stunned fans by announcing his retirement from international cricket during yesterday's test match against New Zealand at Trent Bridge and then took a wicket the very next ball. Bravo. Other notes include ongoing Labour leadership manoeuvres and various local incidents, such as a car-related attempted murder charge in London. The heat and political transition dominate the headlines. Later's Tigers.
Nice shirt, by the way, Edward. But the heat wave's over for the moment. I mean, it was in the car this morning. It was about 17, 18 degrees, which is much nicer. It was great last night. Got back to the place in London, which was really, really roasting on Thursday night. And I'm happy to say that it had calmed down a bit and was quite a lot quieter. I've had a correction, by the way. Ziggy is nearly 12, is 12 and a half. Yeah, well, I said he was 12. Pooch said I said he was going to be 12. Well, he's 12. He's basically 12. You know, I'm not into this 12 and a half, 12 and a quarter thing. You know, how old are you? I'm 65 and a half. What? Nobody says that. Is Edward wearing Mike's shirt, says Tony? No. We need to talk about the economy, though, because the Labour government, such as it is, I'm not even sure there is one at the moment, Pooch, is there? No. Technically speaking, we've got a sort of a Prime Minister in waiting who isn't Prime Minister yet and is not likely to be until the middle of July. We've got a Prime Minister who's exiting, who technically thinks he's still in charge. John says, I've bought 45 litres of water for today. What am I going to do with it now? Don't worry, you can store it in a cool, dry place and it will be fine. Let's talk to Vicky Price, economist and author of many a book and many an opinion. Vicky, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Sorry, we're in a sort of slightly slap-happy mood today. I'm not sure why, because there's no good news to report. And Andy Burnham seems to think that the answer to our economic difficulties is to spend yet more public money that he doesn't have.
Well, he hasn't announced any of that yet, but of course what he is talking about, and I presume it's what you're referring to, is seeing how devolution could work by moving various bits of government, having a number 10 in the north, and seeing, you know, the extent to which he can replicate what he thinks was a great success in Manchester to the rest of the UK. Let's see how he does that. But he's saying at the same time he wants to stick to the fiscal rules. So I think you've got a point. Will it all require extra money, or how will he get it if he does need more? And he's got, of course, the defence budget, right? Which there is now a sort of figure which is being discussed that he's probably going to be accepting. So he's already committed to extra spending on that. So the question is, where will he find any money that he may need to stick to his fiscal rules? And everyone is now focusing on welfare. Big question mark, really, on how.
Yeah, I think that is the problem, isn't it? Because the thing about devolution, and I was saying this earlier to Emma Wolf, is that it does cost more money. And my view would be, okay, if you want to make more local decisions locally, then fine. But then you have to surely slim down to some extent what the national setup is. Because I know when devolution happened in Wales, I was working there when they set up the Welsh Parliament, when they set up the Welsh Assembly, when they set up the Scottish Parliament, I was working up there. You know, it was a huge amount of money being spent outside of what was already being spent with the Barnett formula and with the whole business of moving money from Westminster up to Edinburgh. You know, they hired, I think the number was when they started, 3,500 more civil servants. You know, in Wales, they decided to produce everything in 2 languages. You know, it doesn't come cheap. And unless he is willing to sacrifice some of the national level frameworks, I suppose, and administrations, then where's he going to find the money from?
Well, I mean, the truth is that a lot of the money that is being spent in the regions right now comes from London and the southeast, which are the ones that are growing, well, over a period of time, faster than others and have higher productivity. It's true that there are bits like Manchester that have done well for some time, but if you look at overall for the rest of the country, it is London that subsidises it. So it would be good if that was reduced so that the rest of the country did better. And there is no doubt that we are very centralised by comparison to lots of other places. Now, the cost, unfortunately, of levelling up, if we want to call it that way, and in inverted commas, because of COVID, because of the war in Ukraine, because of the fact that we are losing quite a lot of manufacturing anyway, mainly because of the tariffs that have been imposed by President Trump, but also because of exiting the EU, we've ended up in fact, with the regions being even more marginalised in terms of their contribution to growth. So it is going to be costly getting them up to speed. So that's why I think he's talking about a 10-year project. There's no way he's going to achieve any of that in the 3 years, assuming he has 3 years ahead. And also, of course, we're assuming he's going to be the Prime Minister.
But isn't this the new kind of politics as well, where they don't talk about actually what they can do and what they are able to do? They talk about what they want to do, right? And then when they don't get enough time to do it, they go, well, we didn't actually fail, we just didn't have enough time. You know, Keir Starmer, a month ago, was telling us that he wanted to fight the next general election and the one after. So he wanted 10 years as well. It's a bit presumptuous, isn't it, given that, they have a licence to run the country only by the people's will. And we decide who runs the country. They don't. But it seems that they now want to take control of that.
But the reality, though, is that quite a lot of what is started, like HS2, which of course Andy Burnham is in favour of, particularly the link between Birmingham and Manchester. Yeah. Those are long-term projects, and once you're committed to them, unfortunately, they then move on to the next party that takes over, having to complete the project. And we've had all the news today about it all being looked again to make it more efficient. So that's going to be costing us an awful lot of money, and it's not going to be completed or will be completed 13 years later than initially planned. So in other words, you may say that, yes, it's all short term and you won't achieve very much then. And why are you talking about the longer term? The problem is that you've got to be very, very careful when you are starting anything, that the length of getting there will leave you with costs and problems for a long time to come. So if you start this devolution project, which is nothing wrong with that, in many ways on paper, someone else may well have to pick up the pieces at some point if it doesn't move in the right direction fast enough to make a difference.
But my problem with what we've seen over the best part of the last decade is just bigger and larger government. People keep asking the question, is Britain too difficult to govern now? Is it ungovernable? And I think what's happened is that the state has got so large that it can't be controlled by a single entity, right? Because looking at a piece of the Telegraph today, in 10 years, there's been a 73% increase in civil servants. 73%. So there's now 525,000 of them working in Whitehall, many of them not going actually into an office at all at any point. It's just too many people. And okay, if you want to say to me as a leader, as a prime minister in waiting, I'd like to see more of that moving to the north. It won't move to the north. They'll just hire more people in the north, and then suddenly we'll have another 100,000 people working in the civil service, and there'll be more of a bill. You see what I'm saying?
That is entirely plausible as you're discussing it. But there have been attempts to reduce the civil service, and it has happened in the past. Of course, it happened during the austerity period of George Osborne, which was pretty painful. And then, of course, we had Brexit, and it all had to be rebuilt because we had to replicate all sorts of things that were happening when we were
but the problem with
the EU.
what happened, the problem with happening in the Brexit years is they hired more civil servants to stop it from happening, as opposed to helping it to happen. They were actually putting obstacles in the way of it rather than actually making it work.
I'm not sure that's completely accurate, because of course we had to set up all sorts of institutions here in the UK to just replicate what was going on when we were in the EU, and that was a bit silly. And I think there is huge scope of reducing the civil service and perhaps looking at all those departments. We have too many, possibly. There is now, of course, also a big discussion about whether the Treasury should be stripped of some of what it does at present, so you can have a sort of proper economic ministry that does the right things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other day I walked past Raffles Hotel, and right next to Raffles Hotel in Whitehall is the Department for Net Zero, right? You could get rid of that completely, couldn't you?
Well, ask Ed Miliband. Perhaps when he becomes, if he becomes, of course, Chancellor, he might
Heaven help
decide
us.
that perhaps his old department needs to be merged with something else. I think, yes, merging a few departments would make sense. But of course, my own old department, which was the Department for Trade and Industry as was, and then Biz, is no longer in where it was. And lots of people have been moved into different places. So it's now becoming a hotel. So I pass it every time, and I feel really sad. But there are changes. People are indeed, as you rightly say, so lots of them working from home, not having any offices to go to. So I think some restructuring...
Yeah, but doesn't that tell you that they've hired too many people? Because the offices were perfectly good to accommodate all the staff in the old days, but now that they've got more staff who work from home, they don't have enough desks.
They've reduced the offices, actually, and that's the truth. And quite a lot of people from other departments work in different offices now, or go to coffee shops, apparently. So yes, I think there needs to be a rethink as to whether we need all those departments to be operating as they are, because of course what it also does, it creates lots of sort of ministers who fight to get their money for their own projects, and a lot of time is spent wasted that way. So yeah, I think reorganization is necessary. Perhaps reducing the numbers is necessary too. But I think the danger with that discussion is that we tend to then blame the civil servants instead of blaming the politicians. And the civil servants do, in general, what the politicians tell them. And I think that's where...
Well, we keep getting told that they don't do what they're told. I mean, you know, you can't have it both ways. You know, if you talk to some politicians, they'll go, well, we couldn't get it through because the civil servants just kept finding different ways of putting out obstacles in our way. And I've just found a number for you. Do you know how many people work at the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero?
No.
7,000. 7,000 people. I mean, we're running a YouTube channel here with 3 people. Now, I know that that's obviously a slightly smaller endeavour than the Department for Net Zero, but surely to God, they could do with half of that number.
Well, I think you should say that to Ed Miliband.
I would, if he would ever come in, but he doesn't like scrutiny, Ed Miliband, so he doesn't come and talk to anyone who doesn't agree with him. But there we are. I'll read you this from Stephen Pollard in the Mail. Ed Miliband's political record is one of abject failure. If Burnham makes him Chancellor, he'll sink his own government.
Well, we have seen that there's been a bit of a wobble in the bond markets when it is suggested that Ed Miliband should be Chancellor, but they've been reasonably calm the last few days, even though it looks perhaps more likely that he might be. So perhaps there is a bit of judgment saying that at least he's been quite effective in pursuing what he wants to see done, whereas lots of other cabinet ministers haven't. So there is some political knowledge that he's got through the years, much more than many others. He knows how to deal with the Treasury. He used to be there. So maybe that is a plus, but it remains to be seen. I do remember him very well when I was working for the government, when the first Department for Energy and Climate Change was set up. And that, in the business department, we were very worried about it because quite a lot of what we were doing was moved across there.
Yeah. Which Prime Minister was that?
But that was under Gordon Brown.
Yeah.
So slightly earlier, of course. I mean, when Miliband
that's when Miliband was running Environment, I think, wasn't it?
Well, that was the other Miliband who ran DEFRA for a bit.
I thought Ed Miliband was the Environment Secretary at one point, wasn't he?
Well, you may be right, but as far
he
as
was because I remember he told us all that we should. He told us we should all drive diesel cars because that was better for the environment, and then it turned out he'd been wrong about that, and then he started taxing them. So
well,
there
you
we
may
are.
have your dates better than me. So
that's why I do what I do.
Very good.
Vicky, thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you. Vicky Price there, with a slightly less jaundiced view of the civil service than me, I have to say. So it's all Gordon Brown's fault. He was the one that started the Department for Net Zero. Look at that, 7,005 employees. It says the headcount fluctuates slightly, but recent data suggests that around about 7,000 people are employed at the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero. Very nice office in Whitehall, where hardly any of them ever go. You could, as Kelvin McKenzie would say, who's on at 10 o'clock, you can fire a cannon through most of the departments in Whitehall and not hit anybody. It's true. Let's talk to Mark Littlewood, though, who is still, of course, covering our incredible World Cup coverage, headlining it over there in Mallorca. The first of the 32 knockout stage games started last night. I know we're going to talk about the economy as well, Mark, but it's not been a bad World Cup so far, really, has it?
Oh, it's been great, Mike. I mean, it's taken us an awful long time just to get down to 32 teams from the initial 48, but it's been terrific. Even quite a lot of the 0-0 draws have been entertaining, actually. So, yeah, I've loved it. But now, thankfully, it gets less mathematical and less statistical, as you rightly say. The first knockout game was last night. Canada knocked out the South Africans, so one of the host nations is still there. And the best news of all for me, that game finished at Spanish time just before 11 o'clock at night. So it's been the first night of sleep I've been able to get since the World Cup began. Although I was able to get quite a lot of kip on Saturday during the England versus Panama game.
Oh, my God. Wasn't that the first hour of that was awful. Absolutely dreadful. And I mean, people were agreeing with me. It wasn't as if I was getting flamed on Twitter for saying this is about as dull as it gets, because it really was. Particularly given what had happened in the previous game with what happened to England there, the 0-0 draw. And you just kind of thought, really? Is this the best of it? You know, when you watch teams like Brazil, France, Spain, Argentina, it's exciting football. Even South Africa, Canada was better, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, other than definitely over the last two games, England clearly walk away with the award for being the most boring team in the tournament so far. But don't let that get you down. Sometimes the teams that are boring in the opening rounds go on to actually win it. If you go all the way back to 1982, Italy were terrible in the opening round. They didn't win a single game in the opening round, but went on to win the entire World Cup. So the business end starts now. And of course, on Wednesday, England are up against DR Congo. They've got a pretty lucky draw to begin with.
Yeah. Do you think that, I mean, I've watched DR Congo and I haven't really got an opinion. I can't work out whether they're any good or not, really, to be honest.
Well,
I just hate the way everybody's calling them DR Congo.
Yeah, we should. Well, actually, you're quite right, Mike. On my World Cupper show, we like the traditional names, so we should probably go back to calling them Zaire, which they were known as.
I like Zaire. Why did they have to change it? Because, I mean, anything that's got the Democratic Republic of in it is almost certainly not democratic, right? I mean, you might as well call it the Democratic Republic of Great Britain. Here's the guy that's going to be Prime Minister next. You don't have a say. He's got a 10-year plan, so he'll be there for ages. So let's just move, smoothly, transitionally on to the economy, which is, of course, your main topic of expertise. I've just been revealing to Vicky Price something shocking to me, that 7,000 people work in the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. And we've now got a 73% increase in civil servants in 10 years, right? And all I know is if they start sending people up to north to get, half of Downing Street and, a load more kind of devolution, it will just be thousands more civil servants, won't it?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, this grows like Topsy unless you give it some really, really serious surgery. We have become addicted to sort of central planning and bureaucrats doing everything. You're also quite right. It is almost unfathomable to work out what all of these people do.
Yeah.
I mean, when Britain ruled the world and had a massive empire, we had a civil service a fraction of this size and rather bigger tasks to complete. So, I think that we are likely, unfortunately, through this supposed devolution plan, which I think Burnham will probably screw up, likely to see yet further expansion of the state. If you're going to give power away from Whitehall down to local areas, which in theory I'm in favour of, right, because the closer you get to the area of a problem or potential solution, the easier it is to fix, rather than some detached person in Whitehall, or I say in Whitehall, as you rightly point out, Mike, probably sitting on a beach somewhere rather than in Whitehall, usually don't know the solutions. But I suspect what we'll see is more spending power and regulatory power given to regions and local areas, but not the consequences of it. And you've got to make sure that if local areas want to spend more, well, they have to jack taxes up. And you've also got to make sure that they have the incentive to get their local taxes down by finding more efficient ways of doing things. But I doubt that is.
But they won't, no, because all they'll do is stuff the pension pot, won't they, for the employees locally, and the salary pot. And then we'll see what's left over to spend on, I don't know, giving a couple of, 17-year-olds a job sweeping the streets. I mean, that's basically what you're looking at. So this whole kind of Andy Burnham's the king of the North, and he's got the answers to everything, is, I'm sorry, a load of old cobblers, as far as I can see.
Yeah, that's right. And in fact, if you look at this so-called Manchesterism, that's supposed to be his political ideology.
Sounds like some kind of illness.
Yeah, it does sound like, it does sound pretty grim.
I've got a bit of Manchesterism.
But it does now look, if you start chewing through the sort of statistics, that although he was responsible for, I think, repainting the colour of the buses there, that an awful lot of the growth in Manchester and some of its successes was because the National Conservative government at the time spent a lot of money through its generally ill-fated but not completely hopeless levelling up programme. So Burnham sort of sat there and, counted the money coming in, but it's not obvious that he's been responsible for any particularly major rejuvenation of that city himself. No. So I don't think it's a particularly good template or model to supercharge economic growth. Rather than working out how you can give local bureaucrats, councils or mayors yet more powers, it would be a good start, wouldn't it, Mike, as you were implying, to work out how we could cut the net zero department way down from 7,000 civil service. Or maybe the net zero department should just be cut to zero. That would be appropriate.
I think net zero civil servants would be a good start. That's absolutely right. Now, Christo has popped into the studio. I wasn't expecting to see him this morning, but this is now a drop-in centre, apparently, for, talented broadcasters who've just decided they've got a couple of minutes to spare. Good morning.
I just needed some help.
Okay.
Some therapy.
Well, we're very happy to help at any time.
Thank you.
I'm just going to finish up with Mark before I come to you quickly. Mark, so today we had a few technical problems on Friday, which I think will be hopefully solved today. I don't want to jinx it. So what you got for us today? 12 o'clock.
Yeah, it's great. Well, we did still manage to get out an episode on Friday a bit later, so you can catch up with that on the UK Live Online channel. For persistent foul play, my wingman Glyn Brailsford was sent off and faces a 5-day suspension.
Excellent.
That persistent foul play was the use of too many corny jokes. So for this week, my wingman will be comedian Paul Cox, who will be helping me chew through all the statistics. We're going to really see, Mike, whether the World Cup can spread peace, harmony and love, because as you know, I'm a devout Southampton fan, and Paul Cox is a devout Portsmouth fan, our arch rivals.
Yes.
So it could get a bit feisty between the two of us. We've got economic historian and football expert Steve Davies joining us. And we're going to also be joined by Simon Leslie, super Scotland fan and Rangers fan, to pick over the pieces of Scotland's rather poor exit from the competition. You know what? Only 3 European teams have been kicked out of the competition so far. Scotland, the Czech Republic, and if you count them as European, Turkey. So pretty bleak for the Scots. Yet again, failing to get through the group stage. They've never made it into the knockout rounds in their history. And of course, their rather dour-faced manager, Steve Clarke, has now resigned, despite being more successful than a good number of Scotland managers, actually. So we'll be picking through the pieces of that and looking ahead to what's a great set of matches tonight. Brazil versus Japan. People don't think of Japan as a football superpower, but my God, they've got a good team this time round. We've got Germany versus Paraguay. You might think the Germans are going to win that, but they came unstuck against the South American team in their group, so perhaps Paraguay could pull off a shock. And then the real one, okay, you're going to have to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning to watch this, but this could be a corker. The Dutch take on Morocco, two excellent teams. One of them will get through. One of them will go home. 3 fantastic matches. So now it gets super exciting. Every match is do or die. I can't wait for this week.
Tremendous. Mark Littlewood, thank you very much indeed. Coming up at midday, after the Kelvin McKenzie show, of course, at 10 o'clock. Now, Christo, how nice to see you.
Well, you know,
Happy Monday.
Well, I was just, hanging around on the street outside.
I presume you've been over the road all night, have you?
Yeah, just over at the Eagle, on the dancing on the tables.
Just come out.
And then I came out of there, was hanging around on the street, just like aimlessly searching. And then I thought, oh, actually, I know someone who'll let me drop in on them. And so I just came along here.
Well, would you like a coffee or anything?
No, I've got a water.
That's
I'm
good.
all right. Just like a cup of water. That's
and
all
I
require.
How are you enjoying the heat wave? I mean,
I love the heat wave.
Yeah.
I mean, I
you're
love
Greek,
it.
aren't you?
Of course, we're all going to die because we're told that constantly because we're obsessed with safety. We can't just have something nice for a few days, or we can't just give advice. We can't say, just remember to drink a bit of water, which is what you need to do.
They do all that, though. Have you seen the water fountains that Sadiq Khan's put out in London? No?
Yes, I have.
You have?
And that's like a trigger for me because they are so... does he sit there and think, how can I make something look so unbelievably ugly?
Yeah.
Like this plastic carbuncle monstrosity
it's awful,
thing.
Isn't it?
We've got these amazing Victorian marble water fountains everywhere, and they choose this plastic thing. It's awful. But it is.
I thought we could say that this time of the morning.
It does look like something that I would like to insert into Sadiq Khan, and not in a pleasurable fashion. But why can't we just say to people, just remember, drink a bit of water and don't go out in the midday sun, but enjoy it.
Right.
That's all you need to say to people.
Yeah.
But instead, no. We're going to die. This is the worst thing in the world that will ever happen.
Don't go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere.
Anything.
Don't do anything. Finish work by in Greece. Obviously, I am of Greek heritage.
Yes.
They adapt.
Yeah.
They go to work at 7 a.m.
Right.
They finish at midday.
They don't have a siesta in Greece, really, do they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Then the shops are usually closed in the afternoon, and then they open up again for a few hours early evening because it's very, very hot in the height of summer. So they adapt around that. Whereas here, we just want to close everything. I mean, they're talking about having a maximum temperature. This is the problem with Labour.
Yeah.
Is that I can't help but feel that they like to come up with ways in which we can just not work.
Yes.
And that's literally their modus
operandi. And they
operandi.
love a regulation, don't they?
They love
Here's
a regulation.
for you.
I swear, I'm only happy that Keir and Mrs. Starmer can now spend more time together looking at the sort of slightly risque material, which of course will be the Human Rights Act.
Oh, yes.
He takes that and he's like, oh, it's got me in the mood, darling, because they love regulations and they love rules.
And she'll be able to get back to that nice job she's got at the NHS that she keeps telling us that she does, but doesn't seem to do very much of.
Yeah, well,
she's the only woman who works for the NHS from Washington, D.C.
Well, it was just nice to see her, wasn't it? We haven't seen her at all.
She didn't look very happy, did she, on the steps of Downing Street?
No, but then again, neither did he, in fairness.
No. Well, he nearly cried.
He did.
What did you make of that?
Well, at least we saw that he was actually capable of some emotion. However, I'm sorry, this Burnham
because he was sorry
nonsense,
for himself.
He was sorry for himself because he'd been caught out, wasn't it? It was but I'm sorry, this Burnham nonsense. Burnham is not the new Messiah. He's not the second coming. And the arrogance of this speech he's going to give today. I need 10 years. Sorry, you're not even Prime Minister yet. Who the hell do you think you are?
I really wish somebody, but I know they won't because they haven't got the balls to do it. I wish somebody would just challenge him inside the Labour Party, even if they just made him have a contest.
Yes.
So that he would have to say, this is my plan, this is what I want to do. Instead, we get this kind of State of the Union address like he's president or something.
It's unbelievable.
Right?
And also this devolution plan, which the problem with devolution is that all it ends up happening. So, obviously we are here in London, but I know that it's happened in various other places across the UK. And all that ever seems to happen is, something isn't working very well. Oh, well, it's the government's fault.
Right.
And and then you say to the government, well, hang on, something's not working very well in London. Oh, well, that's down to the mayor. And so it just gives another layer of blame, another layer of bureaucracy, and the way they're selling it to us as well. I mean, I don't know if you've been discussing it this morning about the fact that, it's going to bring down the benefits bill.
Yeah.
How is that going to work?
Right. Well, this is at the same time, by the way, Shabana Mahmood, or Mahmoud as she prefers to be called, is about to bring in a load more refugees because we haven't got enough foreigners in the country.
And what is she thinking?
What we want is some more foreigners to come in.
Well, I always thought she had the brain cell.
They share it. No, this is another myth about Shabana Mahmood. Everybody sort of goes into hushed tones and goes, she's very tough, very good. It's like she's done nothing. She's no better than any of the rest of them.
But no, I thought at least she talked a good game. You're right. I mean, they don't do an awful lot.
She hasn't actually done anything.
But why? Like the quote she gave is, well, we want to get the asylum system fit for generations to come, or words to that effect. No, don't you understand? No one wants an asylum system.
We don't want the asylum
system.
No, here's the asylum system. Can I come into the country? No, bugger off. The end.
It's honestly, I so despair of the lack of talent. I've just been listening on the way in to an interview with a Labour minister who's talking about this £3,000 incentive they're going to give to employers, right? If they employ someone who's been a young person who's been on benefits for 6 months, they'll get £3,000. And you think, well, why are you giving them £3,000? Why don't you just not charge them so much tax?
Exactly.
So therefore they wouldn't have had to have laid off so many young people in the first place. Why are they so moronic? Why does maths elude them? Don't charge them the tax.
But again, it's a bit like whenever you hear the Labour government or any member of their cabinet talking about investment, they mean public money. They mean taxpayers' money being given to people for free. That's not investment. That is, government-inspired profligacy, in my view.
And they're going to invest in all of these places that they're devolving around the country in order to get all these young people off benefits. That's the problem they created.
Yes.
So now they're selling it to us, well, got a brilliant solution to this problem. Well, actually, if you hadn't screwed things up so much, this problem would not exist.
And this is the thing I was saying earlier, that this left-wing mission of his to devolve everything is all very well. But if they want to do that, then I think what they should do is strip away some of the expenses of running government from London then. So why don't you say, all right, if you want to run more locally, sort of local councils should have more powers, then take more powers away from Westminster and have half as many MPs. And say, we don't need 650 then. Or do what Emma Wolf suggested earlier, which was to basically say to the MPs from Manchester and Newcastle and Yorkshire, you don't need to come to London anymore. You can work up there. We won't pay your expenses. We won't pay your train travel. We won't pay for your second home. And you can operate in your locality. No. And I bet you what they'll say is, oh, but we have to still come to London.
They would burst into flames.
Of course they would.
They would burst into flames. Thing is, I've always argued, I'm not against actually more of the already elected MPs, there perhaps being a minister for Birmingham, a minister for Manchester, so that they are represented a bit more. I think the idea of areas that have been left behind, having someone fighting their corner in cabinet, I think is a good thing. But why do we need to have them elected?
But hang on, isn't that what they're supposed to do already? I mean, the mechanism for that is already there.
Well, yeah, but I don't think we've got many of those. Well, I know we've got the MPs, but we don't have them in cabinet. And I mean, so I would like in cabinet, if you're making a big decision.
That's the presidential system then, isn't it? So you're then going to appoint somebody as minister for the Midlands or minister for the Northwest.
But I would get rid of all the mayors. I would get rid of all of them.
You can't have both.
Oh, yeah, I would get rid of all of the mayors so that it's all centrally done. So therefore we can still blame the government. But when big decisions are made about the country, then you have someone saying, right, well, what are you going to do for Manchester in cabinet? That I would be all right with. But you get rid of all of the elected mayors across the UK.
Though, because people talk about the North and they talk about Manchester and occasionally they talk about the North East. They never talk about the South West. They never say, what are you going to do about what's happening in Cornwall?
Oh, because we're all rolling in money down here. Don't you realise that?
Yeah, well, they call it that, the South, But you go to Cornwall, you go to places like Dorset, where there are plenty of people with money, but there are also lots of
absolutely,
shall we say, there's not many jobs down there. There's not many opportunities down there. There's an awful lot of young people in the West Country who have got no hope for anything.
Well, we do get.
They don't get anything.
Those places do get mentioned in the context of Andy Burnham wanting to charge them more for the houses that they own down there that they're all living in. Then those places do get mentioned because, of course, we're all going to get clobbered with that as well. And where is all this in the manifesto? Devolution was sort of mentioned in a passing way in the Labour manifesto. How can he do all this and not be holding a general election? And now you've got all of these pious...
Oh, well, apparently the public don't want a general election.
These pious Labour MPs now saying to us, oh, no, we're doing you a favour, because, the public don't want this. So actually we're giving a smooth transition of power. We're doing it for you. Don't just go screw yourselves.
That's my head zip up the back, as we say here. Oh. The other one, we had Lucy Powell earlier on in a clip being interviewed on Laura Kunsberg's show yesterday. And this is great, right? Because whenever guess what a hypocrite says when you ask them if they're being a hypocrite? No, I don't think I am.
Yeah.
That's what happened. She says to her, do you think you're being a hypocrite because you asked for an election when Liz Truss was kicked out?
General election now.
Hashtag general election now. Oh, no, it was a different time then. Yeah. Very different time. And I'm not being a hypocrite now because we don't need one now. Because we're getting on with it.
And the other thing that they say is, oh, well, of course I said that then because we weren't in government. And when you're not in government, you say different things to when you are in government. Well, then what's the point in telling us what you're going to do? So we should disregard anything you ever say when you're in opposition. Yeah. Well, great. Well, then what's the point?
They've now achieved this sort of peak liar scenario where basically they just tell lies now. They're not even pretending that they're true. They're just saying them to your face.
If this was a relationship, I would be asking for Angela.
You would be.
Not Angela Rayner.
You would.
But it's almost abusive, like a gaslighting, abusive relationship where they literally just tell you that black is white.
Well, if you were told this many lies by your partner, you'd leave them, wouldn't you?
But also, it would be some sort of coercive control abuse, because if you got in from your partner, if your partner got in at 9 o'clock and you said, where have you been? It's 9 o'clock. And they said, no, it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
You'd say, well, no, it's 9 o'clock. And then you'd start thinking you were going insane.
Or they said, but you told me not to come home until 9 o'clock.
But no, I didn't. Well, yes, I did, and I don't recognise that.
That's not the way I remember it.
Yeah, you're a liar. Yeah. No, that's not how I remember it. That's not what I recognise.
Who's that woman in the car?
Yeah.
That's not a woman.
Well, that would be very surprising thing to say to my partner, actually, I have to say. That would be a very odd conversation.
Somebody dressed as a woman. One thing they also haven't told us, right? This is a story in the Mail today, which I just want to touch upon because we've got a couple of stories today. 20,000 illegal migrants who have been in prison in this country are wandering the streets because they have not been deported. They were released from prison in order to be deported. However, they're not being deported because they've got some clever human rights lawyers to say that they didn't know they were being brought to Britain.
Is this Article 8?
Yes. They didn't know they were being brought to Britain, so they weren't aware of the fact that they were being brought to Britain, and so now they can stay, even though they're violent criminals. Also, here's another one for you.
Did the Channel not give them a clue?
You'd think so.
Where are we going? That stretch of water between France and here.
Yeah. Labour has secretly dropped a ban on small boat migrants and other illegal immigrants winning British citizenship. So the Tories had brought in the fact that it was going to be much more difficult for illegal migrants to gain British citizenship. Labour have just reversed it without telling anyone.
Why? Why do they do this?
I don't know.
Understand why. It was like the scheme that Shabana Mahmood suggested over the weekend about people being able to do a Ukraine-style scheme where they welcome them into their homes. And this is going to be for new people coming over. Now, if they said, right? The migrants who are here already that are in hotels, we don't know what to do with them, but if you want them in your home, then fine, put your money where your mouth is. At least I'd understand the logic that we're solving the problem that's here already. But they're saying, no, actually, this is for new people that are coming. Well, that doesn't sound like you've any desire or any faith you're going to solve the problem going forward.
I know, absolutely shocking. We've got a poll today because it's Wimbledon week, Wimbledon fortnight.
Yes, I voted.
Have you? What is the most British thing you can think of? Is it Wimbledon? Is it bus replacement services? My personal favourite. Is it the Test match or is it beer gardens? Beer gardens come in top at the moment, surprisingly.
Oh, I did bus replacement service.
Yeah, I think that's sort of,
because I think that's very, very.
It's very British, isn't it?
Yeah, that you're getting a train. No, you're not. You're getting a bus.
Although, do you know, last week, I think it was Wednesday, I went to get on a bus in my neck of the woods, and the guy goes,
Are you okay?
I get on the bus every day. I mean, people think that I don't always just drive the Maserati. I sometimes get the bus because
you're a man of the people.
I am, but
the Andy Burnham of this programme.
I am the Andy Burnham, yeah, and you can trust me as well. I would never tell you a lie, and I tell it with a smile like that. So I went to get on the bus, and the guy goes, "I'm only going one stop." I said, "Why?" He said, "The bus is overheating." I'm like, "Well, is that because you haven't got any air conditioning?" He went, "Yeah." Because they're not allowed to have air conditioning on the buses because apparently that would be against the net zero contingent.
And these poor bus drivers, I'm sorry, they are actually driving these buses. I mean, some of these buses cost £200,000. Yet we can't put aircon in them. Like, what the hell is going on? The Central Line this week, I got on that train that goes under the ground, which I didn't even know existed. And the Central Line is like 39 degrees Celsius. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous.
I remember years ago doing a thing when I was working at TalkSport, actually, the top deck of a bus in London, the temperature was higher than the legal requirement for transporting animals to Europe. And
that's
actually,
true.
you would not be allowed to transport animals in those heated conditions.
Yet we're supposed to get public transport because we're going to save the planet. Yet if we get public transport, we're not allowed the air conditioning, so we actually do end up passing out, which then probably justifies them telling us that we're all going to die because they're going to kill us. I despair. I don't know what's happening anymore. I just want to go and live on a Greek island. Can I just go and do that,
Can I
please?
come with you?
Well, only if you bring your Speedos.
Okay, then. I'll see what I can do. I'm not sure I can get into them anymore, and neither can you. But thank you.
I certainly can't get into your ones.
Thank you very much indeed. Christian, what a delight. Lovely to see you. Thank you very much indeed. We must move on, though, because we're running terribly late already.
That's my fault. Sorry.
Dr. Gavin Ashenden is here, I think, for our next guest slot. Dr. Gavin, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Sorry to keep you waiting. We had an uninvited guest who needed to be dealt with. So we're now getting rid of him. We must talk about the Constitution and the Church of England because I was slightly alarmed, and I thought of you at the weekend when I saw that King Charles had decided that he's not any longer satisfied with being the head of the faith in this country, i.e. the Church of England. He wants to be head of all faiths. And quite a few people said to me, is that not against the Constitution of the Church of England? Is it?
Yeah, it is. Yes, the whole thing is nonsense. It exists in his own imagination. And what's extraordinary is not only this idea that he has, which nobody else has. And if you walk around and ask people what they think of the world or how they manage with it, they don't tell you, I hold a position of all faiths. I mean, it's simply a nonsense.
Yeah.
It's religiously illiterate. It's a particular penchant that he has that's out of touch with reality. But they've tried to slip it into our constitution through some form of administrator who's written it into a finance bill, as if this makes it real or makes it happen. And it's so disrespectful that actually it takes your breath away. And what kind of world do they live in? It's not ours.
Yes. And also, particularly given the way that Britain is right now, you know, it's not at its most quiet. It's not at its most kind of, you know, solemn. People are quite upset about quite a lot of stuff. And much of it is driven by immigration and the explosion of immigration in our cities and in our country in general, much of which is coming from countries where Islam is the main religion, right? And you would think that he would have some kind of common sense about that sort of thing.
I guess he probably doesn't have X. He must live in a world all of his own where he doesn't see it. Because those of us who have access to real-time events in a real world see that Islam is stretching its muscles. It has ambitions to be the only religion. It doesn't allow any other competitors. It's not capable of living alongside other religions because its DNA, its own internal rules require something completely different. So whatever view he has of Islam, it isn't the one of the real world. It's not the one of migrants raping girls who live here. It's not the one of power play, of enormous numbers of Muslims blocking the streets in a demonstration of their own influence. It's something else completely different. And the idea that he's capable of exercising a constitutional role in these circumstances is not tenable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the difficulty. But again, that's kind of where we are in this country. We saw, I don't know whether you noticed over the weekend, I think the Archbishop of Canterbury went on a little trip to the Middle East. And the only thing that I could see that was remarkable about it was that she sort of launched into some attack on Israel. Rather than going as a kind of representative of the Church of England to pour, calming oils on troubled waters, she kind of threw a firebomb into it.
Well, your previous guest was talking about the way in which people seem to live in some form of self-contained unreality, and this is just another example of it. In some strange way, people seem to have got the capacity to develop a bubble that suits their own beliefs and won't adjust it to the real world. Again, it's astonishing. Whatever you think of the way Israel defends itself, it's the only democracy in the Middle East. Of all the Islamic states, I think there are 60 of them. Just one is democratic, and that's Indonesia. It's a strange place to be if you treasure democracy, if you believe people ought to have some say in the way they live, that you then take the only democratic state and you say its attempts to defend itself make it an anathema. And I think I'll probably support all the other states, and particularly the ones that are immensely rude to homosexuals and Christians. That would be a great value. But, it's beyond illusory. It's very strange.
It is very strange. Another one that I wondered if you would have a view on, I don't know if you've seen the Times this morning, but it's all a bit strange to me. Again, I may have been born in the wrong century or something, but the Church of England has apparently been told that the pressure on vicars to be loud and showy is making life difficult for neurodivergent priests, some of whom have apparently got Tourette's syndrome. I was saying to Pooch earlier, it'd be great, wouldn't it, if you turned up in a church somewhere in the middle of Lincolnshire and the guy gets up into the pulpit on a Sunday and just starts effing and blinding and swearing at everybody. I think that'd be quite funny.
I really thought this was a joke. I thought this has to be. I checked to see it was April the 1st and it's June, so it's not a joke. Again, you wonder what world people live in, and also what religion it is that the Church of England practices. It doesn't bear much relationship to what Jesus taught. Frankly, it doesn't bear much relationship to Anglicanism even 10 or 20 years ago. It's all part of the new madness. The only way of describing what we're living through is a sort of a series of rivers of different social contagions in which people at the centre of each river appear to have gone mad. And this is difficult because the rest of us believe we're sane. And then I think one of your previous guests said, well, it feels like we're being gaslit. And, the phrase is overused, but the difficulty is when you're presented with a reality that's got nothing to do with reality, but the person really believes it and is trying to drag you into it, all you can do is to protest and say, I think you're mentally ill. So, I mean, I don't know if the king is mentally ill, but he's certainly mentally somewhere else than the rest of us. I don't know if the people around the Church of England are mentally ill, but they're somewhere different from the rest of us. Yeah. So this is, but
I think the definition of mentally ill, I presume, would be something which you cannot control, which means that you are, incapable of not being the way that you are, which is possibly the case for some of them. But for an awful lot of them, they're choosing this. They're choosing to have these ludicrous ideas in their heads and choosing to make regulations that affect other people deliberately. They're not just kind of going, I'm mentally ill. They're going, this is normality now.
That's true. I think we've got to a place of self-indulgence where people are convinced that if the world isn't the way it wants it to be, they'll just say that it is and assume it and try really push it as far as they can. And I think, I don't mean to be patronizing, but I think it behoves the grown-ups in the room to say, this is nonsense, we're not going to have it, we're not dealing with it. I'm just reminded of the story of the boy with the emperor's clothes. In the crowd, there's got to be somebody who says, you are delusionary. Yeah. You do not have any clothes on. You are naked, incompetent, and incontinent, and we're not going to cooperate with your delusion. And especially, A, we're not going to be victims of it, and B, we're not going to pay for it.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. That's entirely the message that we try and get out on this show every day. So, Dr. Kevin Ashington, thank you very much indeed for that. Lots and lots of good messages coming in. Apparently, it is unconstitutional for the Church of England to say to King Charles, as the head of it, that he's perfectly fine to say that he wants to be the defender of all faiths, because he can't be. That's not what it's supposed to be like. It's unbelievable. All right, we've got some great messages coming in. Surely these days it's solar lit rather than gas lit. Yeah, very good, says Kevin. Well done. Thank you for that. Speaking of the royals, though, Christo's still here. I've got to ask you about Harry and Meghan.
Oh, God,
because first of all, we heard that they were coming over with their kids because it was safe now. Britain is now a safe country for Harry and Meghan and the boys and the girls. And then we were told that he might be going to visit his mother's grave, which everybody went,
yeah,
that sounds like you shouldn't have said something quite so public. And then he's now
hardly taking the children to Alton Towers, is it?
Well, now he might not be coming at all. So what's going on?
You know what? I've actually been a little bit more sympathetic towards Harry when it's come to the idea of him having security abroad, because he will always be the son of a king. He served his country. I had more sympathy actually until he gave away all those secrets of the military in spare.
Right.
And then I thought, well, you're an idiot. You're making yourself a target. But then, you know, some of them are a bit thick. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
They've never had to think for themselves. But what does he think would happen if he goes to a royal palace? I would imagine it's quite secure.
Yeah.
I would imagine that if you're going to visit the monarch at the monarch's home, that you're probably going to be quite well protected.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to need your own separate security, because it's not like they're going to leave the front door open or just let anyone wander in off the street, because it is a royal palace.
Andrew's not there anymore. So,
Andrew isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
Goodness knows where Sarah Ferguson is and who she's hanging out with either. So that's what I just don't understand. I don't understand what they thought would have happened. And I can't help but also feel as well that this is... I don't trust them. And it's always about the idea that that royal connection is really necessary for them, because otherwise they've got nothing to monetize anymore.
And she certainly can't be trusted. I mean...
Yeah, and it's such a shame, because I've said it before, I'll say it again, I loved her when she joined the family. I loved it when they got married. I was so happy. Our front pages loved it. Yeah, they gave her a bit of stick in the papers, and some of it was a bit
Not
near
at the
knuckle.
beginning, they didn't.
But no,
because I think I was still in the newspaper business when all of that started. To some extent, and you know, they were very much welcoming. You remember the wedding? It was all over everybody was doing it.
And I actually thought it would be a good thing that she'd been an actress in the public eye, because I thought, well, she's going to be used to some of this media scrutiny.
I mean, compared to some of the scrutiny that his previous girlfriends got.
Absolutely.
That he's talked about in the past.
And Princess Catherine. I mean, the thing is, the press in the UK, what they do is they love you. Then they tear you to shreds, and if you can get through the tear you to shreds bit, they love you again, and you go to national treasure status.
Yeah.
Catherine got that. Princess Catherine, doors to manual, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That, you know, and then now she's national treasure. She's a very class act. But the thing is that it was a complete clash of cultures, because Meghan couldn't let it go. Whenever there was something wrong in the newspapers, she couldn't let it go, and she couldn't get over the hierarchy. And also, you know, she couldn't understand that, of course, the royals are never going to correct a story that make the heirs to the throne look worse.
But she also couldn't handle the fact that she wasn't the number one princess.
Absolutely. She couldn't understand that. She couldn't understand the hierarchy of the situation, which is, of course, you know, exactly what the royals are all about. And the other thing is that sometimes when you get married, you either marry someone, and you'll know because you've done it, I think a few times now, haven't you?
Just once,
just
actually,
once.
thank you.
Okay, just checking. But you marry someone who is either going to make your relationship with your family better and heal stuff and say, look, you know, let's try and get over it, or you're going to marry someone that will pick up the scab and make it worse. And that's what she did with him. She empowered him to say, God, all the things that I wasn't actually that annoyed about, she's told me I should be annoyed about.
Right.
And oh God, and so I'm going to write a book about how I had the smallest room.
And the whole Oprah Winfrey thing was a debacle, wasn't it? It's dreadful. That whole interview that they did was a pack of lies.
And throwing
they
grenades.
should never have done it.
Throwing grenades that they knew they wouldn't respond to. They knew they couldn't respond to. And also, it was so subjective, because, you know, that conversation about the colour of the baby, you know, was it, oh, I wonder who he'll take after, or was it, oh my word, I hope he's not black, which I just don't believe that was the case.
Absolute rubbish.
And so it's such a shame but also their stock. I mean, they've not got a Netflix show anymore. They're still selling tea towels or whatever it is. Yeah. So they need the royal connection. They need it. They really, really.
But we don't
need
want
it.
to see them here, though. I don't think, do we?
Well, I think it would be nice if they just did it privately and we didn't hear about it afterwards. But I can't be sure they wouldn't. If they signed an NDA, I'd be happy for them to come. You should sign an NDA.
We'll give them that idea possibly and see what happens. Anyway, Christo, thank you very much.
Is that it now? Am I done?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I thought you were going, but you're still here.
I'm still here. I could do another 10 minutes. When have you got your next guest?
Okay. Well, Jean Hatchett's here. Did we do news next?
Yeah, quickly do news.
Quickly, news before we talk to Jean Hatchett, who's got some very important things to say. Let's get Edward Hughes in a Hawaiian shirt.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. In politics, the knob of the North is delivering his first major leadership speech today in Manchester. He's expected to pledge greater devolution, pushing power and decision-making out of Westminster to regions and local communities, including plans for a No 10 North to drive growth nationwide. Multiple times last week, peaking at 37.3 degrees Celsius and triggering red heat health alerts. What a load of cobblers. In sport, England cricket captain Ben Stokes stunned fans by announcing his retirement from international cricket during yesterday's test match against New Zealand at Trent Bridge and then took a wicket the very next ball. Bravo. Other notes include ongoing Labour leadership manoeuvres and various local incidents, such as a car-related attempted murder charge in London. The heat and political transition dominate the headlines. Later's Tigers.
Thank you very much indeed, Edward Hughes there with the news. He's looking as if he hasn't recovered from the weekend yet.
Yeah,
he really needs to be...
chilled out, but, you know.
Well, you know, he should really wear a suit, though. I prefer that for the news, to be honest. Christo on Plonk, great fun. We haven't been on Plonk, have you?
I haven't been on Plonk. You do Plank of the Week and Plonk of the Week, right?
We do both.
You do both?
You should be on both of them, shouldn't you?
Well, I haven't been asked.
Okay.
It's very rude.
This one?
I blame Charlotte for that. Christo rules, and he loves dogs too.
Oh, well, you know, I've got a third dog now.
Have you?
I bought. Well, I say bought. We rescued a third one.
Oh,
so I've got
that's
two
nice.
rescues from Cyprus, and this is a third rescue. And she's completely mentally ill.
I was in Cyprus the other week.
Oh, were you? It's a big
Hardly
strange.
anyone knows about that. It's been a very well kept secret. Anyway, listen. Final one. Christo snuck in by the back door. I'm not having that. That's ridiculous. An absolute shambles. Christo loves Bisto.
I just like the rhyme.
Well, do you know, at school, one of my nicknames was Christo Bisto Gravy Face. Two. One of them.
That's quite a long nickname.
It was quite a long
nickname. In my school, that would have been shortened to just Bisto.
I was Bisto. Disco is also a big nickname of mine.
Disco?
A lot of my friends call me Disco.
Okay.
Because I did like to party as well in my youth.
No. Really?
Yes, I did.
I can't believe that for a second.
Did.
Yeah.
I'm good now.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, listen, Christo's going to hang around.
I'll hang around.
And we're going to talk to Jean Hatchett now. We're going to try and get a bit serious. Jean, very good morning to you.
Good morning. It's going to be hard to be serious.
I know. I could hear you chuckling away in the background there. Sorry about that. But so we try and sort of mix it up because the news is all pretty awful, to be honest. You know, we've got Andy Burnham assuming himself to be the new Prime Minister without anybody actually asking for him to be the Prime Minister. And we've got you now who you want to talk about something else in Manchester. You know, people talk about Manchester and Andy Burnham as if he's, you know, somehow transformed it into this kind of, you know, Shangri-La type place. I've been to Manchester. It isn't like that. And from some of the crime that's going on up there, we can say that it's absolutely not a great place to go.
Yes. Well, you know what, you've brought me on to talk about the very shortly to be tried case of the alleged rape of a woman who was married to a man who's invited 13 other men to either participate physically in raping his wife or to watch. You know, I think 3 of them are from other areas of the country, and they are across all demographics. So, you know, you've got dog walkers, DJs, accountants, recruitment consultants. This is what is really striking about this case, is that these are everyman. You know, that we you know, and I've wanted to talk about this phrase, well, it's not all men. And no, it isn't all men, but this is a cross-section of men, which shows that there is a problem in society with men who can be recruited into this kind of behaviour. I don't know how this man has managed to, if he has, of course, he's got to be found guilty. He's admitted some of the charges of raping his wife and denied others. And one of the defendants has also admitted his part in it, which was, a remote part in encouraging the crime. But this is happening in, a northern city. Okay, it's all kinds of men in those environments, Stockport and other areas of Manchester. And what is happening as well, there's another aspect of this. The far right, so, Nigel Farage has been called far right by people and say, why is he not saying anything? He's not saying anything because this isn't a migrant case. This is not migrant rapists. Well, that one case doesn't mean that all the cases of the illegal migrants that commit crime aren't happening, and that's kind of, being imposed upon this particular case, which is important in its own right. And feminists like me will talk about both of those issues, because both of those issues are about violence against women. So I thought it was important to come on and say that, because it doesn't mean that none of those other cases of illegal migrants committing violence haven't happened.
I mean, it might be as well. This is a case that hasn't. This is a case that hasn't yet happened, and so politicians quite often steer clear of cases that haven't yet gone to trial for obvious reasons. In a way that because we can't talk about individuals, we can't name people, we can't risk the contempt of court laws, and so there's a limit. And it may well be that I mean, I take your point, but it may well be that when and if there is a conclusion to the trial, he will say something about it, but
exactly.
it's a very unusual case as well, isn't it? I mean, I take your point that it's alleged to have happened, but it's not something that happens very often. I mean, in the old days, that's what we used to call news. We used to call something news because it happened very rarely, and this is one of those cases, I think. I mean, there was another story at the weekend about how there's a whole load of supposedly grooming gangs cases in London that the Metropolitan Police are going to have to re-investigate. And this is in the same city where Sadiq Khan said there weren't any grooming gangs, And you have to ask, who's being quiet about what exactly and why?
Well, absolutely. But, I think you said that this is not common. We don't know how common this is. And we don't know... this is one case that's been brought.
Well, it's uncommon in the sense that I've never seen a case like this in this country. Certainly not in my lifetime. So it may well be going on and nobody knows about it. But what I'm saying is that as a trial, it's an uncommon sort of trial.
Yes. Well, the Pellico case happened in France, and I think that was also in a very small village situation. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that it is possible for this to happen, and how is it possible for this to happen? And I think some of the root causes of that need to be looked at, because if men are being or seeing the blurring of that boundary between what they watch online and what they will actually turn up and take part in, we have to look at what men are watching. And the vast majority of porn these days is of an exceptionally violent nature. Over 90% of porn involves an act of violence against women, including the language that's used, but the acts themselves. And if that's normalised and those boundaries become blurred, and a man puts out a call, well, come and join in, she enjoys this, and men have been watching such things, then you can see how that becomes really difficult to establish that physical boundary between what a man can and should not do. And going forwards, if we don't tackle that, if we don't ask men, what are you watching? Why are you watching it? Should you be watching it? And men should be asking each other this. It shouldn't just be a normalised thing that men are watching this kind of thing enacted on their screens, because they might be encouraged to cross over from that screen into real life. So while you're saying it's not a normal thing and it's news, it's simmering under the surface. We have a huge problem of violence against women in this country, and we're going to have more. I mean, you're talking about Burnham and what he's going to do when he comes to power or takes the throne or whatever it's being called. The early release scheme is going to put 700 violent men back on the streets per month. That's...
I know, it's insane. And it's absolutely mad. And we've got stories today saying there's 20,000 people who've been released from prison who were supposed to be deported who are now wandering the streets because they can't be deported. So there is an absolute nightmarish problem. But I think Britain, as a general rule, is becoming a more violent society. Overall, I mean, even for young men, it's more violent as well as it is for young women.
Yeah, Yeah, obviously I'm a feminist, so my focus is usually on violence against women. But
I'm a humanist. I worry about everyone.
I know, but that's kind of where I write and where I tackle things. But women like me as well. I'm always talk to you about this. Don't speak about the crimes that are committed by illegal migrants out of fear of being called racist. And I've thrown that out the window, because somebody has to. There has to be a feminist woman who is willing to say, and there are a few, but they are few and far between, because the majority of them are more interested in keeping a Labour government. And so, they've got to keep those hard left principles and not mention these men. But if there are 20,000 men who are suddenly, didn't know they were crossing the channel, those men also don't know when they rape a woman. We've had those cases come to court where they deny knowing that they shouldn't have touched women in the street, or they shouldn't have had these kind of behaviours. So some of those 20,000 are going to be wandering the streets, and those men are a danger to women. Yes, we've got our own men in this case, particularly. The majority were white, and they were across all demographics. But amongst those 20,000 who are, in my view, lying that they didn't know they were being brought here, they also will lie about not knowing what they have done to a woman, or what their attitude towards a woman is. So, we're looking at an awful lot of risk there for women. And I just, I think it's behoven on women like myself to say something, not just stay quiet because it's not very left wing. Anyway, sorry.
Absolutely.
Ranting.
No, Jean, no, it's good. Ranting is good. It's what we want you on here for. And I'm very glad that you brought it to our attention. So thank you. We'll keep an eye on the trial as well and report on it as we can when things come out. Jean Hatchett there talking about the dangers for women walking the streets. And I think this is why the political sort of avenues are becoming more and more polarised, Christo, I guess, because you've got an awful lot of people who are saying to the government, well, why are you not talking about this? And why are you not talking about, why are you allowing this to continue? Why are you releasing people into the streets of this country who should be deported? Why are you not deporting them? This is kind of a never-ending nightmare.
And the thing that irritates me the most about this is the hypocrisy, because we do talk about violence against women if it's straight white men.
Yeah.
Starmer
used to say it all the time, didn't he?
We'll talk about that endlessly.
I've always stood up for violence against women, or he's always fought against it. Well, no, he hasn't.
Well, do you remember when adolescence almost became a legal requirement to watch it?
Yeah,
so if it's a good series, but it's of course very much about the fact that it's a young white boy who is violent towards a woman.
Yeah.
And if it's they're talking about the misogyny lessons in schools as well, I can't help but feel it's going to be like white working class boys that they target with that.
Yeah.
Whereas of course there is misogyny that comes from other communities that we just don't talk about that. And that I think is why those things aren't spoken about, because it's really easy to bash a certain demographic and say, well, there we go, we're solving the problem.
Yeah.
And that's why it's frustrating. And there's so much hypocrisy. There are so many issues that we talk about that have that level of hypocrisy.
Yeah, there are. And again, as Jean just mentioned there, they're releasing a lot of people out of prison. And it's not got nothing to do with their ethnicity, by the way. But these are people who are being let out of prison because prisons are full up. And they think that the answer is to get dangerous criminals let out back into the community. And you go, well, who comes up with this stuff? And who thought that was a good idea?
Third of their sentence now, they will. What's the point? What's the point in sending them to prison?
Well, of course, you've got people who are involved in sort of, penal reform who say, well, of course, you might as well shut the prisons and you might not put anybody in prison because it doesn't do any good, because they just commit more crime when they come out.
Oh, well done. You've just explained the Green Party manifesto.
Yes,
well
exactly.
done.
Yeah. But the point is that, even if that was true, and even if it was the case that nobody benefits from going to jail, the people who benefit from them going to jail are the people that they would otherwise be assaulting or murdering or, beating up.
And it's the social contract. I do think there is an argument, by the way, and I've not turned into some hideous lefty. I do think there is an argument that we need to try and rehabilitate a bit more in prison and try and make it so that people are given the tools and abilities to maybe learn something once they've done some good behaviour and leave prison with something. But I think that the idea of getting rid of prison and also it not being really hard for the first couple of years, and then once you've earned the right to actually make something of yourself, I think it's ridiculous. I'd also bring back the death penalty, but that's probably another chat for another day.
Okay, well, I mean, that's what Rupert Lowe would like to have a referendum on.
Yeah, I think that there are certain crimes that we've especially seen in the last few years where I just see that there is no purpose in us paying to keep those people alive. There is no chance of rehabilitation.
It's not my only worry about it, but one of my main worries is that the government are so useless, they'd probably start killing the wrong people. Because would you trust them?
You'd be straight for the guillotine.
I wouldn't trust them to collect my taxes, and you wouldn't trust them with actually executing people. I don't think so.
In fairness, the one thing you can trust this government to do is to take your tax money. That is actually the one thing they are doing.
But can you trust them to do it right, though?
No, and they wouldn't do the good thing with the money. Have you got another guest now, right up to?
Yeah,
then I'll say goodbye.
All right.
But it's been lovely to see you.
Yeah, normally we have a sort of what's called a show plan, so that we book people in to be appearing at certain times of the show.
So I don't just turn up when I feel like it.
But you then can't complain that there's too many guests.
I'm not complaining that there are too many guests. You are a very popular man.
I am very popular.
And for me, just to get just a few minutes of that,
a scintilla,
is something I feel very honoured for.
No, I'm very happy.
And next time I'm wandering past, goodness knows what time of the night and morning, and I've not been to bed.
Feel free to pop in. In fact, if you talk nicely to Pooch, he might even give you a little fob, so you could just come in whenever you like.
My own fob.
I mean, that could be a mistake. Actually, no, just cancel that idea.
Because that was remember when you regretted giving me your mobile number because you started getting texts at 3 a.m. Do you remember that? That was a big mistake.
I regretted giving a lot of people my mobile number, to be fair. It always turns out to be wrong. Anyway, listen, great to see you.
Nice to see you.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Enjoy the heat, even though it's not that bad today. And Widdicombe is here, somebody that can tell us what she believes to be the case about the justice system in this country. And a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
There seems to be, yet again, a sort of massive roadblock in the way of justice in this country. We're talking about people getting released from prison because there's no more room to keep them in. We've got 20,000 foreign prisoners, we understand, who were released into the country who were supposed to be deported, who can now not be deported because we paid for some human rights lawyers to argue that they didn't know they were being brought to Britain. So now they can stay here, apparently, and probably become citizens. I mean, it's a real mess, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, the whole thing is not only a mess, it's high farce as well. First of all, when it comes to letting prisoners out early, as you observe, that is solely because there aren't enough places.
Yeah.
Well, there's an answer to that. You supply more places. You take emergency measures and you supply more places. I had to do that when I was prisons minister, and I did it. And it can be done if the will is there. So if they say we have to let them out, that is another way of saying we haven't got the will to find another solution. I mean, that is the first thing. Secondly, if you are recommended for deportation, then you should be released only onto the plane. Now, that's what happened to Boris Becker, of all people.
Yes.
He was released from prison after he'd served his sentence, but he wasn't released into the community. He was taken from the prison straight to, hilariously in his case, a private plane. But he was taken to leave. And if you're going to be deported, you should be deported from prison and not have some sort of halfway house in the community. Now, that is the next thing.
Yes.
But the big problem with justice in this country, you know this, Mike, and I know it, is that people get away with crime all the time. They get away with robbery, they get away with shoplifting, they get away with drug dealing, because there is not a concentrated, if you like, zero tolerance approach to criminality. So add up the whole thing. There isn't a concentrated approach. If you do get caught and you go to prison, you're going to be out early. And if you should be deported, actually, you'll just find yourself back in the community. Add it all up and you have a farce. You have something that no government could conceivably be proud of.
No, exactly right. And there doesn't seem to be anyone who's able to get a grip on it, because I was rather surprised, I must say, than about you, to see Shabana Mahmood at the weekend pushing out this new policy that she wants to bring yet more refugees into Britain. And it just seemed a very badly timed announcement, because given what's going on, where we can't stop people arriving illegally, the boats continue to come in mass numbers. As I say, the 20,000 criminals wandering the streets already. And whether or not these refugees deserve to be given some kind of, sanctuary is not really the point. The point is that we are pretty much at a full limit here at this moment in time, and I can't imagine why any Home Secretary would say, here's a good idea, let's bring some more people in.
Well, there are several things in what you've said there, but one thing I'm going to take you up on, you've said we can't stop the boats. Yes, we darn well can. We don't stop the boats. That's the difference. We don't. We haven't got the policies in place to do it, and we could have quite easily.
Well, that was kind of what I meant. Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean it's not. I don't mean it's impossible to stop them, but I mean we can't at the moment stop them.
No, I mean, announcing an increase in migration at this stage and announcing, any softening of the asylum system is an act of lunacy. But if that's what the Tories want to do, and if that's what the Labour Party want to do, then so be it. I mean, if a government minister says that, one assumes that Andy Burnham will approve of that policy, because I doubt very much at this moment if anything is said without Burnham's agreement. Right. So I doubt very much if any policy is being announced at the moment that Burnham is going to drop. So just bear that in mind when you hear these announcements.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is that all of the cabinet ministers at the moment seem to be running around trying to impress Andy Burnham with all of their kind of, shiny new policies, and they want to try and make it look as though he's the man that they want to sort of attach their hopes and dreams to. And it's rather unseemly, it seems to me, that here's a guy who has not yet even been anointed Prime Minister, who's going to make this kind of State of the Union address today about, I'm going to set out my 10-year plan for the country. And you go, well, hang on a minute. You've only been an MP for 10 minutes. Nobody's put you in charge yet.
It speaks volumes, and it speaks volumes for the state of current British politics, that this can actually happen. I mean, you're right. It's unseemly, and it's also black comedy. It really is. But it's happening. He will become Prime Minister. I've no doubt about that. He doesn't have any doubt about it, and the Labour Party doesn't have any doubt about it. But wouldn't it be hilarious if something went wrong and he didn't become Prime Minister?
I would love to see that, honestly, and I'd like to see somebody with some cojones inside the Labour government, or inside the party even if it was a backbencher, who would at least make it look as though there was some kind of contest going on and make him look as if he was winning something. Because I think it's really, I mean, all these MPs and cabinet ministers who were talking at the weekend saying, we don't need an election because we've got a parliamentary democracy and the MPs pick the Prime Minister. They don't. That's not true. People vote for a party, the leader of which is then entitled to become Prime Minister if they win. It's not the same thing as saying the MPs can choose, because that's never happened.
No, the legitimacy is not as great. I mean, that is true. But it's also true that when there is a succession, there is quite often not a general election. I mean, Callaghan succeeded Wilson, Major succeeded Thatcher, Brown succeeded Blair. I could go on. And there weren't any general elections as a result. But yes, I mean, you're right. There's a question about the legitimacy there. But the fact is that when it is put to MPs and to the Labour Party in general, he will probably, be crowned. He will be crowned rather than have to win an election. And yes, I'm with you. It would be very nice if just one brave person from the Parliamentary Labour Party said, right, I'm going to stand, not because I think I've got a hope, but because there should be a proper contest and his views should be examined.
Yes, and they absolutely should. But I mean, rather predictably, it would appear as though he wants to spend more money, because whenever anybody says the magic word devolution, it never means less money, does it? I mean, when they went in and decided to open up a Scottish Parliament and a Welsh Assembly and the Northern Irish Assembly as well, they basically hired more people. I've got a note here from Jamie Jenkins, our favourite statistician, who says central government employment basically has never been higher. It's at record levels. 558,000 people employed in the civil service in March 2026. It's gone up, apparently, 73% in 10 years.
Yeah. And, in addition to all of that, you've got the Quankos and all the rest of it. And the one thing that, one of many things that Farage has said is that when we get in, I mean, we are just going to go like a knife through butter, through this very, very swollen public sector. Now, there are places, where you want a big public sector, such as the NHS, and there are places where you do not want it. And the idea, if you have devolution, then you've got to have the necessary officers, then you've got to have the necessary staff. And we should remember, I know it's a long time ago, but we should remember that when the referendum was held in Wales about devolving, only a quarter of the Welsh people who voted to have it. Right. 3/4 either voted against or didn't vote at all.
Yeah. And that was, so if you were to do that again, would you change the rules on that then and say that you would have to have, because I remember when we had this conversation about having a second referendum about the EU, and there were those of us who said, all right, well, if you want to do that, that's fine. However, what you should do is put a minimum requirement on it for a number of people voting, whether it's a percentage or whether it's a number, but it will have to be above a certain number before you can allow it to go through.
Well, that is one possible option. I don't know that you can do it with any EU referendum because we didn't do it for coming out. It was a straight majority.
Yeah.
And there were no terms attached to it. So I think it's questionable with the EU. But whenever you hold an election for anything at all, the government of the day is entitled to set the terms, and Parliament, if it passes it, then those terms are set. But I don't want to get into that because I don't think there should be any referendum. I don't think there should be any further devolution. I think the government should concentrate, for heaven's sake, Andy Burnham, concentrate on sorting out the blinking mess that now goes by the name of Britain.
Yes, I agree. Well, here's one of the things, again, which I think will frighten you, which is a statistic for the number of people employed in the public sector has now gone over 4 million. It's 4.07 million in March 2026. That's the highest level that it's ever been at, and that includes people in the NHS, academy school employees, agency, civil servants. It's the whole gamut of the public sector. I mean, it's a massive number, isn't it?
It is, and just think of the concomitant pensions bill.
Yeah.
There are very few public sector schemes, local government scheme is one, but there are very few public sector schemes which are funded. They're all most of them are underwritten by the taxpayer. So there isn't a fund growing to pay the pensions. So if you just go on recruiting and recruiting and recruiting into the public sector, you are storing up for future generations an enormous, really enormous bill that may eventually become unsustainable.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that is the problem. It's already pretty much unsustainable because of the numbers of people who are contributing to the tax system. As it dwindles, all they can really do is charge more tax to the people who are paying it and try and find more money for the people who are not paying it.
Well, there's a limit to how far you can tax your way out of a problem.
Yeah.
And that is something, frankly, which only, and she did it so candidly, it failed. But that's something which only Liz Truss has really boldly addressed in recent years. We've got to get taxes down now. Reform has said that it will do that. The Tories always say they'll do that. Labour, to give it its due, doesn't pretend to do that, but always sort of hedges about by saying they won't raise this and they won't raise that. And then they do, of course, because their idea of getting money is not growth and commerce and activity and investment. Their idea of getting money is just to take it from you and me.
I know, exactly right. And the problem for the Tories, of course, is they can say until they're blue in the face that they want to bring taxes down, but they were responsible for putting the highest tax burden on the country since the Second World War until Labour got in, when they managed to make it even worse. So,
Yeah, I mean, we all remember that. Nobody is going to trust what they say. They had 14 years to do all these things that they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
And at the time they told us it was impossible. Well, why has it suddenly become possible now that they don't have to deliver it tomorrow morning? And you do have to ask yourself that.
You really do. And it's great to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed for another dose of common sense. People can go and find your Substack, of course. Anne Widdecombe's very much in favour of common sense, and go and check out her Substack. Coming up, Andy Preston's going to join us. He's a former Northern Mayor, of course, independent Mayor of Middlesbrough. He's got plenty to say about Manchesterism and the North and the South divide and all the rest of it. So we'll find out from him what's going on with that. We'll get some news in a minute as well. Should we do a couple of super chats in the meantime? Get some. We've got an awful lot of them coming in, so apologies if we haven't read them out. We'll try and get through them. Elena is here with those. Mr. Gillespie says, save money, make ghee by boiling unsalted butter. Well, I don't plan on getting any more ghee into the house, to be honest. Mahmoud's new policy that allows financial sponsors of immigrants should also include criminal responsibility for their actions. Yeah, I like that, Leon. Thank you for that. This from Gerard. He says, best breakfast show in the UK. P.S. General election now. Right on both counts, I think. Lulu Rose. Apologies, Mike and Emma. We did this one. She said the heat's getting to me. Lulu said that we were getting boring talking about ghee, and then she apologised. Watson says, everyone has silly names for Harry and Meghan in California because they're a joke. Quite right. And Morris says, what's your P.O. box? We haven't got one anymore, Morris, I'm sorry to say, because unfortunately we've got so much stuff. If you look around the studio, we got to a point where we couldn't really handle getting any more stuff in. So it's very kind that you all want to send stuff in. But unfortunately, at the moment, we are kind of limit up. And so we've called a bit of a halt to it. We may reopen it at some point, but at the moment, we just don't need any more stuff. So, shall we do the news? Edward Hughes has turned up in a Hawaiian shirt. Check this out.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. In politics, the knob of the North is delivering his first major leadership speech today in Manchester. He's expected to pledge greater devolution, pushing power and decision-making out of Westminster to regions and local communities, including plans for a No 10 North to drive growth nationwide. The UK continues to swelter under an intense June heatwave, with temperature records broken multiple times last week, peaking at 37.3 degrees Celsius and triggering red heat health alerts. What a load of cobblers. In sport, England cricket captain Ben Stokes stunned fans by announcing his retirement from international cricket during yesterday's test match against New Zealand at Trent Bridge and then took a wicket the very next ball. Bravo. Other notes include ongoing Labour leadership manoeuvres and various local incidents, such as a car-related attempted murder charge in London. The heat and political transition dominate the headlines. Later's Tigers.
Edward Hughes with the news there. Thank you very much indeed. We've got lots coming up. We've got Andy Preston joining us right now. Susan Hall as well, of course. She's the former leader of the Conservatives in the London Assembly. She, of course, once ran against Sadiq Khan to be the mayor as well. Mayors are all the rage at the moment. It's all everybody's talking about. And Andy, very good morning to you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. You were, of course, a mayor in the north of England as an independent. So I'd be interested in your take on Mayor Andy Burnham, who apparently thinks that he's got every right to suddenly get himself elected as an MP and become the Prime Minister of this country, which is slightly arrogant, I think.
Yeah, the danger with Andy Burnham is, look, I think he's a nice guy, Mike. There's something about him that I like. He's a good communicator. I think he'd be a great neighbour. He's intelligent, but he's got this, in my opinion, completely wrong. He's completely confusing the GDP growth in Manchester, which is largely driven by things like history and population growth, with his own prowess. There is no evidence that Andy Burnham or any mayor has personally driven economic growth. So if he's going to announce today a bunch of policies and spending based on Manchesterism, that's dangerous.
Well, that's my worry about the north-south divide conversation as well, because lots of people talk about the north of England, and many people have messaged me today to say, the north of England isn't just Manchester. It's not just about, the second city or whether Andy Burnham's done a brilliant job. There's lots of parts of Britain which are not as lucratively run and not as beneficially run as the southeast. I, for example, would mention Cornwall or Dorset or Somerset. Some of those. So there are some very poor communities down there, and nobody really talks much about that.
They don't talk about the west of England, do they?
No,
Devon, Cornwall.
No. And I mean, I haven't heard Andy Burnham talking much about Yorkshire or Humberside or Tyneside.
I think, Mike, I think getting power out of London is a good thing. It's symbolic. It shows a reach into the country and it makes people feel good. So that's good. Whether it drives economic growth, as I say, there is zero evidence. Lots of academic studies of this, lots of think tanks, and there is no compelling evidence. In fact, if we look in Scotland, as a country with devolution, they haven't really done well. But what a city that's done really well, Glasgow, the greater Glasgow area, which, by the way, doesn't have a metro mayor, has outperformed Greater Manchester economically, as has the west of England, the Bristol urban area. That's outperformed Manchester and hasn't got the same devolution power. So moving power out is symbolically strong, but there's no evidence it does a lot of good.
Yeah, I mean, there is this kind of myth as well, isn't there, about Andy Burnham, where people talk. I mean, I was watching something over the weekend where they were talking about, the skyscape of Manchester, the high rises that Andy Burnham's built. And you go, hang on a minute, he hasn't built them. Manchester has got a life of its own. And the problem for me with people like Burnham and Labour is they think that investment is all about putting public money into things or somehow subsidising private companies to make a success of their business. And I'm really against that.
Yeah.
Let them build their own stuff, let them have their own money, don't tax them as much, and then see the growth that comes with it.
What's happening in Manchester is the skyline has changed, and I think that's great. It does inspire a bit of awe and confidence and excitement. Let's look at where it comes from. About half of the skyscrapers you see are student accommodation blocks. They don't tell you that.
Yeah.
The massive boom in student...
one of them. It's an absolute rip-off.
I'm sure it's really expensive. The massive student numbers. I mean, in Manchester now they have about 150,000 full-time students crammed into the central areas in these huge tower blocks. Look, the growth in Manchester is largely population-driven. They've bolted on 250,000 people in 10 years. That's the size of Southampton. They've grown by the size of Southampton. So that grows your economy. What it doesn't do, it doesn't increase the GDP per head.
Right. And also, who are those people? Are they people who are working? Are they people who are not working?
Well, it's students who are borrowing up to 30 grand a year, spending it in the city on accommodation fees and other stuff, going out and doing whatever. That's a great boost, but that's debt. It's not actually benefiting the whole economy. And secondly, that money isn't rippling out to the working class people of Manchester. Wages haven't gone up, homelessness is rising, far more kids are in poverty. I'm not blaming Andy Burnham for those things, but I'm saying, just as I'm not blaming for those, I'm not going to congratulate him because the economy's grown either.
Right. Because we live in this very weird sort of political bubble, I think, at the moment. I mean, I'm going to do my meltdown in a bit on some of the stuff that was coming out at the weekend where Lucy Powell and Steve Reid were sort of rolled out to defend the government and to defend why they've now suddenly decided that Keir Starmer's yesterday's cold potatoes and, the new man is the coming Andy Burnham. But, this idea that Lucy Powell was asked if she was a hypocrite because, she wanted to have an election when Liz Truss got kicked out and now she doesn't. Oh, it was a very different time. I'm not a hypocrite. Well, of course she would say that. Same with Steve Reid, who up until 2 weeks ago was still defending Keir Starmer and saying that Keir Starmer had a 10-year plan. Now we've got Andy Burnham who's got a 10-year plan. And there is this kind of sense I get from people that I talk to every day, ordinary people in this country, who feel that politicians are just lying to them.
And it was fascinating to watch, Mike. I watched it yesterday on the shows when they went round as Steve Reid and Lucy Powell, and they were saying, oh, no, this is not a crisis, not a government crisis, nothing like Liz Truss. They were making it sound like the coup against Starmer and the inserting of Andy Burnham in the highest office in the land was actually a minor HR change. It's a monstrous issue. Now, I don't believe we should have an election, but the people who are calling for one with Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak saying there should be an election, they've gone very quiet now. And their points aren't credible, not at all.
They're really not. And I think, again, people are fed up with the two-party system where they see it as a kind of a uni-party, if you like, which is why they're looking elsewhere to see what they can get from either the Greens or Reform or maybe even Restore. But people just don't believe a word that politicians say anymore. And there's a reason for that, and it's because politicians have now consistently people use the word gaslighting all the time. It's not one of my favourite words, but they have been gaslit by these statements that are made by politicians who are telling you, look over there, that's not a man, that's a woman. Look over there, that's not global warming, that's net zero driven. They're telling you things that you can see are not true.
Our finances are in a mess and no one's had the guts yet to admit it and say, we're going to have 5 really tough years because they fear that if they don't tell the truth, they won't get in power. And they want power more than they want to tell the truth. We're yearning for a politician to say, actually, things are a bit knackered. We can really fix it, but it's going to mean possibly some tax rises. It's going to mean some painful benefit cuts. But the future's going to be bright. And if a politician would do that, we'd all get behind them.
Well, one of the
things,
one of the things that Starmer's people said was a mistake by the Starmer administration was that he said that it was going to get worse before it got better. And when he said that apparently made it impossible for him to succeed. I don't agree with that. I think you're right. I think if people were honest, people would like a bit of honesty.
Totally.
Because we don't get honesty very much. But equally, I think what we need to see, and there is absolutely no doubt about this, the only way out is to cut public spending, not to tax people more in order to pay for more things. We have to cut it.
Absolutely.
And until somebody comes in who wants to cut welfare, as you say, I mean, they're talking this morning about Burnham's 10-year plan is going to include how are you going to get kids back to work or kids into work in regions, and it's going to be done locally? Well, that's all very well, but how exactly is he going to do that? Again, as we heard from Christo when he was in, you don't want them giving grants to companies to employ people.
No, we know how that will end up.
You want them to stop taxing them so that they do it, their own volition.
Make it easier, cheaper, and quicker to hire youngsters. But similarly, Mike, give them a push off the sofa. It's too easy to sit at home. And that's what will level up the country, Look, there are people in the southeast that sit at home, they don't do anything and they don't contribute to the economy when they should be.
Right.
The issue is there are more of them in the north than there are in the south. That's the biggest difference between the north and the south. We need to get them off the sofa, all of them, off the sofa into work. That's what will save the country.
Yeah, although there are plenty of parts of the south as well. And again, I don't want to turn this into a sort of geographical argument, but there are plenty of places in Kent, in Sussex, counties that might be considered wealthy, where there are pockets of quite a lot of poverty and quite a lot of places where there's not really many job opportunities.
Absolutely.
There's not much going on. I mean, down the south coast, for example, and my kids live down that way, there's not a lot going on.
It's very misleading, Mike, when they say that the north is poor and the south is rich, because there is extraordinary poverty in the south, especially in London. London is desperately poor in huge swathes. And there's loads of affluence in the north. It's just a question of degrees, isn't it? But they make it sound the north's desperate and everyone's struggling, and the south, everyone's living it up.
If the answer for Andy Burnham is to tax people in the south to pay for the north, that's an absolute recipe for disaster, I think.
We need to get people off the sofa. That's what I think the answer is. Get people more active. People who are struggling with anxiety, lack of confidence, get them into work, off the sofa. That will help them boost the economy. That's the biggest thing that a new PM can do.
Right. And in terms of getting people into work, I think they have to make it more lucrative for them. Not necessarily that we have to subsidise that, but if you're going to make less money working than you are not working, then it's
Who would do
upside
that?
down. Why would you bother? I don't actually blame people for not going to work if it's going to cost them more money.
Absolutely.
And you know from people, particularly with kids, if they lose certain, benefits because they take a job, why would they do it?
I think we've also got quite lazy. I was talking to someone the other day, and most people now work from home to some extent. And my sister actually was saying that she's involved in getting some people back into the office. Some companies have employed her to see about getting people back in the office. So she's interviewing them, and they're saying things like, well, if I go back to the office, who will look after my dog? They've lost complete touch with reality. We need to get many people as possible back to the office, but we need to get everyone off the sofa. Productivity is what will drive Britain's return to strength.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Andy, good to see you. Thank you very much, Steve, for dropping in. And why are you not still running something?
I love doing this. It's nice to chat to you, Mike, and I'm enjoying it.
Good stuff. Andy Preston, former mayor, of course, of the Middlesbrough, independent mayor he was from 2019 to 2023. We should be able to find you something to do, Government, surely to God.
See what you can do.
Common sense returns. Speaking of common sense, we've got Susan Hall, I think, to talk to now. Susan, very good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. Welcome to the new Mike Graham Show. We're firing on all cylinders over here. Love to see you talking to us. Just talking there about local mayors. You and I have had many conversations about our local mayor here in London. Unfortunately, still sitting there, Sadiq Khan. Spent a bunch of money last week, I saw, on putting these rather weird-looking water fountains all over London, telling people they could get free water everywhere. But meanwhile, the buses weren't running because they were overheating.
Oh, I mean, I could give you a whole list of things that he spends money on when he should actually be putting more money into the Metropolitan Police. They're where we need the money put. But he has things like the Loved and Wanted campaign, which is over £1 million. I mean, he's got all sorts of little campaigns going where he wastes our money, our taxpayer money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And yet, what's the situation with him? Is he going to run? Because we keep hearing that Labour are going to put somebody else up to be the mayor coming up to the next election cycle. Is that right? Or is he going to try and run again?
I honestly don't know. Dawn Butler is desperate to become our mayor. God help us all.
Oh, crikey.
I mean, the one thing is he loves the trappings of being mayor. I mean, when I was standing, one of the things he said to me is, if you won, would you still allow me to have the police escorts? I was absolutely taken back. All the things that you would ask me, will you continue my good work doing God knows what? I mean, cleaning the air is about the only thing, and free breakfasts, which of course aren't free. We are all paying for those. But no, it was about his security. people. Whether he'll actually give up, the trappings of being a mayor or not, I honestly don't know. He said he'll decide next year.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So let's wait and see. But
Well,
I mean,
we'll
if he
see.
was replacing Dawn Butler, I mean, it's like Andy Burnham replacing Keir Starmer, isn't it? I mean, it's just dire. It's dire, Mike.
It isn't
Dire.
good. It really isn't good. And I mean, I thought of you actually at the weekend when I saw the story where it said the Metropolitan Police are now going to be asked to possibly investigate thousands and thousands and thousands of cases of these grooming rape gangs, because it turns out that they didn't investigate them properly the first time. And all I was reminded of was those constant questions that you used to put to Sadiq Khan in Mayor's questions, which he would always avoid and which he would always try and be difficult about, and on many occasions denying altogether that whenever you said to him, can you tell us if there are any of these cases going on in London? And he basically always denied it. And now he can't surely deny it, can he?
Well, no, that's the thing. There's 4,000. There were 12,000 sent for inspection as to whether they had to be looked into again. And apparently 4,000 come back and said, yes, they do. Well, there's no way Sadiq Khan didn't know what I was talking about when I asked him about the grooming gangs. He just chose not to answer. And this is the problem we've got with him. He never wants to answer any questions. And, us politicians sometimes do the gotcha question. That wasn't one. I genuinely wanted to know the sort of scale of the grooming gangs in London, because clearly we had them. I mean, I asked, do we have them? Because I wanted an answer as to how many did they think we'd got. His response, as you've seen, Mike, was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But that's not the only time I've had a go at him. I've asked him about this on numerous occasions, because we've got to keep it in the news. And at least now we've got a proper inquiry going on.
Yeah.
Although Sir Keir Starmer had to be dragged screaming to get that done, calling us, well, they're all on the far right bandwagon for even mentioning these grooming gangs. It's an utter disgrace. It would be the disgrace of the century, I'm telling you, because these are all underage girls being raped.
I know. It is extraordinary, because the arrogance of the man, Sadiq Khan, is really what used to grab me when we used to talk on quite a regular basis. And almost every time you would come in, there'd be yet another mayor's questions where he just kind of didn't feel like he had to answer anything.
No, he gets away with it. That's the trouble, that's the setup. He comes in front of us once a month and people say to me, well, why didn't you ask more? And it's because we're under a time limit. I think we get 5 or 6 minutes each. And of course, my colleagues all want to ask questions as well. So I can't just use up all the Conservative time.
No.
So 6 minutes. And of that, of course, it'll take up at least 2 or 3 because he goes on about everything else and just won't answer the questions.
Right. I know. It's shocking. And I mean, the policing situation in the capital is still kind of not properly solved, is it? There's still a lack of police. There's a kind of lack of direction, it seems to me, from a lot of the things that we see happening in the streets. They've got this live facial recognition rollout going on. There's a lot going on sort of beneath the surface, if you like. How do you see the next sort of 12 months panning out when it comes to the Londoners and their relationship with the police?
Well, to start with, I'm a massive fan of live facial recognition. It's they put it on in Croydon a while back and had to turn it off after, I think it was something like half an hour, because they had got so many criminals. They didn't have enough officers to go and process those criminals. But that's how good it is. And I would say to people, if you don't like it, just bear in mind, if you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to worry about. And it saves hundreds of hours of officer time. In actual fact, officers watching the cameras would not have picked all those people up by any means. But of course, again, the mayor has just screwed something up. There was a very big AI contract coming with a company called Palantir. Suddenly that has been removed, although they're now looking at it again. And of course, Sadiq Khan's office has been saying we want to give contracts to people who believe in our values. So my questions to the mayor, well, what do you think our values are? Well, because he won't answer that.
No.
So he's screwed
And his
that up.
objection to Palantir is a sort of political one, isn't it, more than it is anything else, because he doesn't like the people who are running it, because he thinks they might be a bit friendly with Donald Trump.
Well, also, they've got connections with Israel, which, of course, Microsoft and all sorts of other companies have. But the Greens go berserk at anything that's got anything to do with Israel.
Yeah.
So whether that's behind it, because, of course, the Greens have done very well in London in the latest elections.
Yes.
So it's now pandering to the Green vote, which I wouldn't be at all surprised. But
And does that change the makeup of the Assembly, or are you just talking about like the individual boroughs that have now got quite a lot of Greens?
No, it's individual boroughs because it's affected councillors. So we have our next election in 2 years' time, and then it's like a snapshot of how things are then, as to the reflection on who then goes on to the Assembly, because we're all voted for at the same time as the mayor. So we were all voted on 2 years ago. So you could have a whole London full of Green candidates or councillors, or all Conservative, and it wouldn't make any difference to the London Assembly until the next election, and then we're elected in or not.
And we were talking just now to Andy Preston, former mayor of the Middlesbrough region. I don't know if you know Andy, but I mean, he was talking about devolution, and sometimes it can be good, and you've got to be careful how you do it. I mean, does the London Assembly work? Is, I suppose, a basic question.
No, I don't think it's got enough powers, because clearly we should be able to make the mayor answer these questions.
Yeah.
He chooses not to, and he gets away with that. Some people would do away with the GLA members. Well, my answer to them is the mayor's got a £24 billion budget. Excuse me. We've got to make sure that that is scrutinised, even if he doesn't answer the questions people. But you can't give somebody a £24 billion budget and not scrutinise it. So I think the Assembly should have more powers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder what Andy Burnham will have to say about that, because obviously he talks a lot about the North, and he talks a lot about moving powers to the North. I'm not quite sure which bit of the North he means, but he probably just means Manchester. But I mean, will you be able to make a sort of an entreaty to Andy Burnham, if he is the new Prime Minister and he wants to talk about giving more powers to localities? Then surely London should be on that list, shouldn't it?
London, to be fair, has quite a few powers at the moment. The mayor is given... I mean, mayors, if they spend their money well, they're regarded as good, but because they haven't got so much in tax-raising powers, so they don't always have to do the nasty things, although Sadiq Khan excels in that, quite frankly. I don't know. The problem is it's in the hands of a mayor, and when I'm stuck with a mayor, as you are, that is as bad as ours, devolution doesn't look a good idea. But then we look at people like Keir Starmer running the country, and I would suggest there are very many of us that are totally mortified with the way things are going. I love Andy Preston, you saying get people off the sofa. Blooming right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get
And
people out there to work.
Yeah, because there's so many people now who just don't seem to do it. But as I said, if you're not going to get more money for working than you are for not working, then why would you bother?
Well, I would, because...
Well, I would as well.
But there are lots of people that won't, and you can see the argument. In actual fact, I think some people would be worse off if they went to work. Well, we've just got to deal with that. The benefits bill is ludicrous. As for people being able to break into our country and being given a load of taxpayers' money, housed, clothed, fed, all the rest of it, there are lots of us who are sick to death of this. This has got to stop.
Yeah.
And announcing, I believe now, is like the Ukrainian system, whereas you can offer refugees a room in your house. Oh, that! Good luck with that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know where. I mean, I said this earlier on the show. I don't know what world Shabana Mahmood is inhabiting, where she thinks that at this particular moment in our history is a good announcement to make. It really isn't,
No, they should have detention centres so that the minute these people arrive, they are put in a detention centre, which wouldn't cost any more than the amount that we're shelling out now all over the place. They need to be locked up so that they can't go out and cause problems in any of the local communities. If you look at places like Crowborough, and I feel so sorry for those residents, because if you've got teenage girls, you're not going to want them to go out on their own.
No.
At least if you've got little ones, you can keep an eye on them the whole time. But, it's very worrying, and it's getting worse and worse. They need to get a grip of that. They need to get a grip on welfare. And actually, whoever's putting in all these rules around things in the workplace, they need to know that it's all very well. None of them have ever run a business.
No.
They all think that if you own a business, you're making a fortune. No, it's not like that. Small businesses, very often, if they have bad weeks, the owners don't actually get paid. They make sure that their staff are paid first. And I know this. I ran a small business for over 40 years. I know this. None of those idiots on the cabinet know how to run a business, know how things work, and they just think these magic money trees are going to pay for all this welfare. Well, that isn't the case. And some of us that are taxpayers are getting sick to death of this.
Absolutely right. And just to go back to the facial recognition thing for a minute, it's all very well catching people, but there's nowhere to put them. We haven't got any prison space. We're letting people out of prison and then allowing them to sort of roam around for free because either one, they can't be deported, or two, nobody's ever going to apprehend them. So yes, by all means, crack down on the criminals and collect them all and round them all up and put them in a black Mariah, whatever they do now. But unfortunately, most of them don't end up going to jail.
No, they don't. And I mean, that's soul destroying for the police officers that spend a lot of time actually catching these criminals. That's the first thing. The second thing, these rape victims from the grooming gangs are looking at the sentences given to those people that abuse them all for all that time. They're low sentences to start with, and then they know that they're being let out. They've got something they've got to live with forever. And these absolutely vile people are being let back out again. Something's gone very, very wrong, and it's getting worse by the day. I know the Conservatives didn't get it all right. We absolutely didn't. But at least we knew what was wrong. Labour don't seem to understand what is going wrong.
No, they really don't. It's quite shocking. Anyway, listen, Susie, it's great to see you. Let's hope we can get you on a bit more often, because you're a voice of reason. And we need that right now, I think, in this dark time with which we're trying to live through. So congratulations, and thank you very much for standing up for us in London, where
I always will. I always will.
Susan Hall there, Conservative in London's crime and policing area of the London Assembly. We've got Andy Preston still here with us. Andy, I mean, let's talk a little bit about prisons, because I would have thought if I was running a government, I'd say, why don't we build a few more prisons? Because if you build more prisons, you create some employment for people. You create employment for the local community where the prison is. And you also have the double benefit, I suppose, of locking up some of the bad people.
Mike,
what do you reckon?
It's a no-brainer, but we won't do it because we're slow, we're expensive, and we're stupid. Look, across the country, especially in the north and some of the poorer towns in the south, we've got office buildings and other buildings that are completely empty, can be bought for next to nothing. Now, of course, they can't be maximum security prisons, but loads of people in prison are in low security prisons. They're nearing the end of release. Get them into converted office buildings. Remember the Nightingale hospitals? Remember that? That was built in like 2 weeks. You could create a place to contain people that's for low security, low risk prisoners at the end of their period. Get them into these office buildings that are converted or warehouses. And that frees up the space in the high security jails for the total wrong-uns that are being let out. The rapists, the murderers, the people who are getting out early. Keep them in. It's insane what we're doing. But there's an idleness, Mike, and we're just slow at doing stuff. Everything we try to do is expensive. We're tied in red tape, but the biggest issue is we're too scared to take risk. That's the issue.
And we hear all the time, in my business anyway, that governments don't want to build prisons because nobody wants them to build a prison in their area. But if you sold it to them as a kind of business proposition, surely they would. It's an employment proposition, maybe not for everybody. Not everybody wants to work in a prison, but it's creating something rather than nothing.
Totally.
And it kills two birds with one stone.
I think nobody likes a new development or something big near where they live if it changes the view. But it depends where you put it, how you do it, how you sell it. It brings jobs, it brings economic activity. It can be a great thing. But the most important thing is there has to be punishment for crime.
Yeah.
And so there have to be prisons. They're going to have to go somewhere.
Yeah, exactly right. And there's far too many criminals, in my view, just wandering around. And what that tells you is they don't care. And what we see sometimes the way people behave, they're not worried about being arrested. They're not worried about, being caught committing crimes. I mean, one of the problems I see every single day, every time I go on about this in London, is people walking through barriers without paying on the London Underground.
Yeah.
And I mean, occasionally you'll see a team of cops waiting for them at certain stations in central London. But most of the time there isn't one, and nobody stops them. And they're not worried about being stopped. They're not worried about going to jail.
Yeah. When there's a lack of consequences, you're going to keep doing bad stuff, aren't you?
Yeah.
If nobody punishes you for doing bad stuff, you're going to keep doing it. And that's the same in your personal life, bringing up kids, employees or criminals. There have to be consequences for breaking the rules. And that's why shoplifting went crazy.
Yeah.
Because people twigged straight away. Nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
And I presume it's still going on. I mean, I don't know
It's
whether it
still
is.
going on.
I was
It's
in my
still going
local
on.
shop the other day and the wine section wasn't locked. And I said, oh, does that mean you're a bit more relaxed about it? He says, no, we just didn't lock it today. But the idea that you have to go in and ask somebody to unlock the fridge.
Some of the stuff now, it's like chocolate and cheese is like,
I
in a
bought
security
a
container.
little roast joint the other week, and it was in this sort of this sort of see-through perspex box.
Yeah.
And as I say, the box to the front, and they had to unscrew.
It's
weird.
What's
going on with this?
If someone said 20 years ago, that's how you'll shop, you would have said no way. I don't think people have got more evil. I just think there are no consequences, so people are naturally pushing the boundaries until the point where they're punished.
I think we are living in a strange time, though, because I think we do see more cases of kind of what you might call nastiness and just ill-mannered people. I mean, I don't know if you saw, there was a video that went out last week of a woman who was walking up the stairs of a train station, and there was a character who wouldn't get out of her way.
Right.
She was 80 years old, she had a walking stick, and this guy was like, I'm just sitting here, and she was going, well, can you please, you know, would you mind? I need to hold on to the banister.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't move. And you just think, what sort of individual
Absolutely,
is that?
the lack of civility.
Yeah. And that's the bad
There's
thing.
been a change, hasn't it, in our culture? I wrote something actually for LBC. I might mention LBC.
You can say it here.
I wrote
we don't mind here because we welcome all comers, right?
Correct.
We're not jealous of anybody. We're doing our own thing. It's fine.
Fantastic. I wrote something for them, Mike. And what it was about, I was in this traffic jam coming into central London from the west. I'd gone past the Westfield shopping centre up towards Notting Hill. The traffic was terrible. It was boiling hot. Everyone started beeping their horns.
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking, why are you doing that? That's just going to wind everyone up. It's not going to speed it up. And that didn't happen 20 years ago. Our culture has changed. We're less tolerant, more impatient, more selfish. Say, I'm annoyed, I'm going to rant and rave and beat the horn, I'm going to play music outside.
See, I lived in New York in the 80s when it was like that. And then when 9/11 happened, it went the other way.
Did it?
Everybody started being nice to each other.
Has it gone back, or is it?
It's never really changed much again. I mean, I actually preferred it when everyone was angry, to be honest, because I was in my 20s and it was kind of, it was a stimulating area. But I mean, New York is not the place that it was, and I think it's never been the same after 9/11 was such a terrible event. But it's a thriving metropolis. It's a wonderful place. It's a kind of, it's a very energetic place to be. And you feel as though the thing that worries me more about London at the moment is that it's not so much a can-do city. It's a won't-do city.
Yeah.
It's like they're always trying to stop you from doing something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas in New York, I always got the sense that it was kind of inspiring you to do stuff.
It doesn't have the unbridled ambition and determination of New York. When you're in New York, you're aware that Washington, D.C. is the capital of state, but New York is like the capital of the world, or so it feels. I love London. I think it's a great city. I think it can improve. But New York has a different level of energy and ambition.
And there's a famous cartoon drawing of New York, which was a cover of New York magazine, or the New Yorker rather, where it's just got the globe, and it's got kind of New York kind of bursting out of the globe, and the rest of the world just kind of tiny behind it.
Absolutely.
And that's how they feel. But anyway, getting a bit philosophical for this time of the morning, 9:34. Andy Preston's here. Coming up, we've got to speak to David Lethem, who was our host last Friday, a week ago Friday actually, up at Swinford Manor, which is an amazing place. He's going to talk to us about hospitality and much else besides. I'm going to do a meltdown, I think. Should we do some super chats, Elena, as well? Yeah. We might as well, before we do a bit of news, because there's so much going on today. Lots of you have been getting in touch, so thank you for that. Mike, have you tried U-Move for Ziggy? It relieves the symptoms that elderly dogs experience and has worked amazingly well with my dog. Yes, Timothy, we have. And there's a couple of other cheaper versions of it. U-Move's actually really expensive. Uncle Joe says, is Edward Hughes a second cousin once removed of Phil Bodmer, BBC Look North. Love the show. Daily Dose of Common Sense. You might know who that is. Look North, no?
I do. I know Look North very well, but I don't know that name.
Okay. At the end of the Victorian era in 1901, approximately 120,000 civil servants administered the British Empire. Yeah, well, those were the days, Mr. Woodward. Somebody was telling me about this, actually, because there's some friend of mine having a party coming up for July the 4th, and they said the theme was going to be, you know, the British Empire and how, you know, it's the 250th birthday of American independence, right? And I said, can you imagine if we ran all those countries? We can't even run our own country now. You know, we've got no chance of running anybody else's. User says this, councils are increasingly being run by people of foreign heritage who have no or little allegiance to this country. A disaster waiting to happen. Well, that may be true in some of the inner city areas as well. Bam Bam says, think about it. Our fighting age men are to be sent to war with Russia soon, leaving our women and girls to the men that have come here. I'm sure that in itself is a war tactic. Well, hopefully not. You'd have to say. And one from Biscuit Face, thank you for that, very kind. It is very nice of you to send these in. Have a fiver, says Si, thank you. Great show. People actually send us money, which is really quite remarkable. Uncle Joe said, it's like getting things for free. You don't appreciate it as much as when you earn or buy something with your own hard graft. An election now, please. Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely right. I think we should have one. Andy doesn't. But I think in fairness, you know, for Andy Burnham to sort of suddenly just arrive and assume that everybody wants him to run the country, I think is mistaken. And I think it's only going to end in tears. But there we are. Shall we get some news with Edward Hughes?
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. In politics, the knob of the North is delivering his first major leadership speech today in Manchester. He's expected to pledge greater devolution, pushing power and decision-making out of Westminster to regions and local communities, including plans for a No 10 North to drive growth nationwide. The UK continues to swelter under an intense June heatwave, with temperature records broken multiple times last week, peaking at 37.3 degrees Celsius and triggering red heat health alerts. What a load of cobblers. In sport, England cricket captain Ben Stokes stunned fans by announcing his retirement from international cricket during yesterday's test match against New Zealand at Trent Bridge and then took a wicket the very next ball. Bravo. Other notes include ongoing Labour leadership manoeuvres and various local incidents, such as a car-related attempted murder charge in London. The heat and political transition dominate the headlines. Later's Tigers.
Edward Hughes, thank you very much indeed. Hopefully tomorrow he might turn up with a slightly more, shall we say, fitting attire for reading the news. You know, it's not a bleeding Hawaiian shirt you should be wearing. You should be wearing just like this. You should be wearing a shirt and tie. Anyway, coming up, it's time for this. The clip, right? So, we want to talk to you today about hypocrisy, and we want to talk to you today about Labour ministers and Labour cabinet members, because over the weekend we saw an entire slew of interviews being done by the likes of Lucy Powell, who is the deputy leader of the Labour Party, and Steve Reed, who's the business secretary. I think that's what he does now. He used to be environment secretary. He used to be the chief of Lambeth Council, which qualifies him pretty much for basically giving you a parking ticket. And I know that some people might disagree with that. But here's the problem. It seems to me that Labour ministers and Labour government spokespeople are now just lying to us. They're not even pretending not to lie. They're telling us things which are true, which are blatantly not true. For example, we've seen Keir Starmer, even in his going away speech, when he stood on the, a week ago actually, it was about a week ago to this moment, that Keir Starmer stood on the steps of Downing Street and resigned, something that he said he would never do. Only a few days before, he said he was going to fight if anybody tried to dislodge him, which he didn't do. Only the week before that, he said he was going to stand for 10 years. He was going to run not only the next election, but the one after, because he had a 10-year plan for saving Britain. He also said, I've won every fight I've ever been in. I don't give up. And he did all of those things, right? So now all the people that told us that he would never give up, and all the people that told us that he would stay as Prime Minister and that he would not ever relinquish the role because he was elected to run the country and change it for at least 5 years, they've all now run away from him and gone over to Andy Burnham's side of the room. And they're all telling us how brilliant Andy Burnham's going to be, even though he doesn't really have any great record of success in any particular area. As we've heard today, he's made Manchester a better city. But has he? Was it really down to him? Or was it down to other factors and money that came from central government? But here's my problem. If you were running a kindergarten and the children in that kindergarten lied to you in the same way that these politicians are lying to us, you would take them to one side and at very least have a stern word with them or their parents and say, look, you've got to teach your child to speak the truth. You can't have them just telling lies. If you were in a relationship with somebody and they lied to you as much as these politicians are lying to us, you wouldn't be in it for very long, would you? Surely to God, you would say, why were you out all night? These people would say, I wasn't. I told you I was going out. It was extended more than I planned it to be. But I've got a 10-year plan, don't worry. I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. And they just changed the subject. If you worked with people who lied to you as much as these people are lying to us, you would leave the job. You would go, I can't work with people that tell lies, one lie after another. I can't have it. It doesn't work for me. Have a look at this, right? This is Lucy Powell being asked if she's a hypocrite.
I want to ask you about something that you put on Facebook when Liz Truss resigned. Conservative Prime Minister resigned on the 20th of October 2022 after 49 days in office. You posted, let the public decide the next Prime Minister, general election now. Do you want a general election now so the public can decide their next Prime Minister?
Well, I think we were in very particular times after Liz Truss had crashed the economy, making big decisions that had nothing to do with what was in the Conservative manifesto, and we were all paying the price for that almost instantly in higher mortgage rates and all of that.
The principle is the
same,
isn't it? The principle is the same. Let the public decide on the next Prime Minister, you wrote. So that situation could apply to now. Do you want the public to decide on the next Prime Minister now?
Well, we live in a parliamentary democracy where the Prime Minister is chosen by MPs. That is the situation that we're in now.
You didn't say that in October 2022.
What we had then was two Prime Ministers in less than 2 months, one of whom came along and didn't listen to anybody around her. The big institutions that support this country took some big decisions for which every single one of us paid a very, very heavy price in inflation going through the roof and our mortgage rates going through the roof after a real period of huge disruption.
So you don't think there should be a general election now?
Different time.
Is that not hypocritical?
No, I don't think it is.
Lucy Powell, do you think you're a hypocrite? No, absolutely not. Well, you would say that, wouldn't you? But I'm sick to death of these lies. I'm sick to death of the gaslighting. I'm sick to death of being told red is blue and blue is red and black is white and white is black. And is that a woman over there? No, it's a man. Are you sure? Yeah, I think I am. You know, we know what's going on. We see you. So just stop. Try and tell the truth for a change. And maybe, just maybe, people will have a bit more faith in you and a bit more faith in the system. That's it. It's not difficult, this stuff, is it, Andy? I mean, people expect to be told the truth. I think they don't mind being told the truth. They don't mind if the truth actually is a bit unpleasant. Mm-hmm. But they don't want to be told lies anymore.
You know what, Mike? I think people are so desperate, politicians are so desperate for power that they will say and do almost anything. The other thing that's driving this dishonesty is they are scared of saying sometimes, I don't know, or I got that wrong, or actually, I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
And I think, we said earlier, I think the public would really get behind someone who said, do you know what, I was wrong, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I now think this.
Yeah.
Or actually, I've changed my mind on that. Or,
although, funnily enough, I mean, we have seen that, haven't we? We've seen that with Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, for a long time, I mean, we had a little reel that we played last week of him, saying, I want to end freedom of movement. Oh no, I don't want to end freedom of movement. And I mean, we made a sort of comedy out of it because there were so many things. I think when he couldn't define what a woman was, and then suddenly the Supreme Court told him it was a woman who was born a woman. Oh, then he knows. You know what I mean? So I take your point, but at the same time, the public doesn't like too much flip-floppery either.
No, I think what the public will tolerate and actually welcome is honesty, where somebody says, I got that wrong, I've changed my mind. if you change your mind on everything all of the time, as Keir Starmer did, you know they didn't mean it when they said it. You think, well, whatever he says now, is he going to change his mind in 2 minutes' time? And Keir Starmer was a calamity. He was a disaster.
He was.
And he was thoroughly dishonest. We couldn't believe anything he said because everything he had said before, he went back on. That's not the same as changing your mind now and then, is it? It's a completely different character.
No. But the problem with the way that the politics is constructed, it seems to me, in this day and age, is that, you're kind of fenced in. And a lot of them say this, that, when I was in Cabinet, I couldn't speak out because there was collective responsibility. But I did say things in Cabinet. And people go, really? Did you? Did you honestly? Because it doesn't seem like that. And then, of course, it makes it look as though they're craven just to get into some kind of position of power. Well, they just agree with whatever the last person said.
Absolutely, Mike. They will do anything. And you see it with Andy Burnham and the things he said about immigration.
Well, he's
and
already
about
flip-flopped
genders
during his campaign
Absolutely.
on some serious issues like rejoining the EU, on what is a woman, on women's spaces, on all manner of different kind of economics. I don't think he understands an awful lot of economics, to be honest. He seems to be blissfully unaware of how the markets work. He doesn't seem to have much economic policy idea. All he knows how to do, like a lot of Labour government members, is tax the middle classes.
I think our system, it basically, if you want to join the gang, the political gang, you have to be a good gang member and show that you are loyal and you'll do anything and say anything. So you grow up agreeing with everything, and then it becomes very hard to backtrack later. The politician, if I'm allowed to say, there's a politician that I do think is showing signs of honesty right now, and I warmed to her once she became leader, was Kemi Badenoch. She became leader of the Conservative Party. The first thing she said is, it's time to tell the truth. And I really welcome that.
I think she's done very well. And I mean, there are those out there now who say that the Conservatives have got enough time, if we do have another 2 or 3 years to go before another election, to rebuild the party. I'm not so sure, though, because I know, just from listening to my own audience, how many people used to vote Conservative and have said they never will again because of what happened over the last 14 years, where they felt very let down, taxes went up too high, immigration was a nightmare, crime was running at all-time high, they didn't spend money on defence. There's a lot of things that we're now, and I mean, I have no sympathy for Labour at all, but I do have some understanding of the fact that they say what they inherited wasn't brilliant.
I totally understand that, Mike, and I tell you something, is I actually think that the likes of Kemi Badenoch and the senior Tories understand that too. It was towards the end of those 14 years, it was genuine chaos, where there were factions within the Conservative Party fighting each other. I think, to be fair to them, they had been through the tail end of the global financial crisis, that huge recession. Then, of course, there was COVID. Then there was the cost of living crisis because of the war in the Ukraine. It was a hellish time to be in government, but they were shambolic. And what she seems to be doing, so this isn't meant to be a party political ad, but she seems to be uniting the Conservative Party, rebuilding it from scratch. And let's see how many she can win back.
What do you think about reform at the moment? What do you see happening there?
I believe that reform are starting to unravel. Now, they're still strong in the polls, I know that, and I know they're way ahead of the Tories. But when I look at the bickering online, when I watch Nigel Farage on telly being asked questions about the 5 million, regardless of whether it was okay or not, he looks really uncomfortable. He looks like a man under pressure. And I think that story's going to run and run. He's going to keep coming out with answers like it's none of your business and being a bit stroppy. And I think it's damaging him. And I think that he is still the party. So if I was a betting man, I would be probably starting to bet against reform now.
Really?
Yeah.
See, it's interesting because I think that, they're going through what you certainly would suggest is a bit of a bad patch. I think anybody can see that. But whether it's temporary or not, I think depends on a lot of other moving parts. I mean, I think the problem with our fickle media in this country, and I say that as somebody who was very much a part of it and have been all my life, the fickleness of the media is extraordinary. Just because Andy Burnham's won one by-election, suddenly Labour are back.
Absolutely.
And they're really not.
And there are some polls, Mike, where they're at 26%. It's
people
insane.
Still hate them as an entity. And, before the Starmer resignation, I was saying, and a lot of people were agreeing with me, I don't think Labour will win another election in my lifetime, as far as a general election goes.
A lot of Andy Burnham's popularity now as the de facto Labour leader is because he hasn't had to make any tough decisions.
Right.
He hasn't had to put tax up, take benefits away.
And he's not Keir Starmer in the same way that Keir Starmer got elected because he wasn't a Tory.
Yeah.
So people are not voting for Labour; they're kind of voting against something else.
Absolutely.
And I think the danger for a lot of observers of the business that we're in is that they start writing off Nigel Farage and Reform, who, as you say, are still incredibly popular and had a fantastic local election result in May.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was only a month ago.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
I mean, it was an exceptional performance. I mean, what Richard Tice and Nigel Farage have done is built something absolutely incredible. It is mind-blowing what they've achieved.
Yeah.
However, as an observer, I think it's spread very thin. I think it's fragile, and I don't know whether they can sustain this at all. My gut feel is that bickering, if they fall in the polls, I think it'll then fall apart.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
It's an interesting situation. We shall see. But I think it's a bit early to be, shall we say, predicting the death of Reform. I would say that for sure. Right now, though, Andy, thank you very much indeed. We're going to speak to David Letham, who is a good friend of ours. He is the man who runs Swinford Manor up in Newmarket, a place where I've been lucky enough to have been invited twice by David, who's a big fan of the show. David, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. We had a fantastic time. I don't think I saw you in the morning of a week ago Saturday. But David's basically rejuvenated a former hotel, which was, I think, going into rack and ruin and going into bankruptcy practically, and is now one of the top wedding venues in the country. And you know, against all the odds of hospitality, he's actually making it work really successfully. So tell us a bit about your story, David.
Well, that's pretty much it, Mike. I was blessed enough to take on this venue 10 years ago this summer, and it was at the time a failed hotel, quite a small hotel. We only have a bridal suite and 12 guest bedrooms. We have really nice function spaces, and we took it on and we focused it entirely on weddings. So we became an exclusive wedding venue pretty much immediately, and quite tough the first couple of years. You're kind of off the radar. Everybody remembers it as a hotel. Nobody knows of it as a wedding venue. But yeah, we worked hard at the marketing and pushed it. And I've always said the best way to sell weddings is to deliver fantastic weddings. And I've got a great team of people that work for us at Swinford, and that's what we do. And it just got better every year. Apart from the lockdown year, which was pretty disastrous for us, for everybody in this industry.
And how did you survive the lockdown year?
Well, interestingly, we actually sold more new weddings in that 15 months that we were closed, effectively, than we'd done in any other period. So in a way, it was a bit easier to sell weddings because the showing people around was all done online and didn't take as much time as face to face. And I think also people were looking for things to focus on during lockdown, and planning their wedding and getting it booked was a good thing for a lot of people. So we got through that okay. We were well supported by our funders at the time, and we've come out of lockdown very strong and very active. I mean, there's been ups and downs since then as well. Again, for most venues in this industry, the cost of living challenge for everybody makes a difference as to whether people decide to go ahead and book their wedding now or put it off for a while and see if things improve for them financially. So we're dealing with all of that, and unwelcome tax rises, etc., national insurance on employers. All of those things affect us and affect our customers as well. But no, it's going really well. We're very happy to have made it to the 10 years. And that's why we decided to throw that sort of quiet, understated event.
Yes, well, in fact, we've got a little video of the quiet, understated event. This was their 10-year anniversary party, which they were kind enough to invite us to. Have a look at this. It was a fantastic event. And I tell you, the one thing that surprised me about that was that I was actually there and I never saw that little mini casino thing you had going on. When were you doing that?
That was in the room that we call the study.
Okay. Is that the other bar at the other end?
No, it's the room you walked through to get to the terrace outside.
Oh,
so
okay.
I think all of that was happening while you were out on the terrace at the
probably,
the
because
evening,
we decided to go out on the terrace and it was all a bit old for the disco. But brilliant. So how has the new government's kind of taxes affected you? Have you? Because a lot of hospitality people that I know have said it's meant that you've had to let a few people go. The national insurance rates have gone up a bit high. You know, the business rates are higher. How's that affected you?
I think all of those things have affected us in a similar way to everywhere else. That on the national insurance increase, we have tightened up staffing. We've had no choice but to do that. That's substantial for us. I think when that's coupled together with increases in minimum wage levels, because it doesn't just affect minimum wage, it tightens the gap between your sort of your brand new employees, your younger employees, and your older, more experienced employees as well. And that's a really difficult thing to find a good balance with, because we want to protect the people who've been with us a long time and reward them, but equally we're facing higher wages with what we would call our sort of casual staff that work with us on the wedding days but aren't with us all the rest of the time.
Sure.
So those things aren't welcome. And then in particular 177%. Now obviously this government brought in lots of reliefs and things to tone that down. But the bottom line is we're still paying an extra £12,000 a year in business rates this year. And it will be the same increase for the next 2 years as we work through the transition of those reliefs. So it's all extra cost, Mike. It's all extra pressure. It's not very welcome. It does make things tighter for us at a time when, like I said, everybody is watching their pennies as well, our customers as well. We do think we provide really good value weddings for the prices that we charge, but it does affect people's decision making as to whether to go ahead. It's a major event. Obviously, it's a big, hopefully for most people, once in a lifetime event, and they don't choose to do that lightly, and we respect that. But it's made things tough. But we're very well aware it's not just us. It's other wedding venues and everyone generally in hospitality as well is suffering the same fate at the moment, unfortunately.
And what sort of advanced booking do you have? Do you have bookings going sort of for a year? How does that work?
Yeah, so at the moment we've got about 250 weddings booked forwards.
Wow.
So that's anything from within the next 6 months to 3, sometimes 4 years out. It kind of focuses around 18 months to 2 years out as a general thing. That's where most of them fall. But a lot of people book further out, then they can budget better and save up for their wedding. And it's not an industry secret anymore if people are willing to organise and arrange their wedding fairly quickly, say within the next 6 months. Every wedding venue will give a really good deal to fill available spaces that they have in that time, and we're the same. We do some good offers as well.
Wow, brilliant. Well, listen, it's a fantastic venue. It really is. The rooms are gorgeous. The service is tremendous. It's a great business, basically. And we're hoping if we can find a date that we're going to come up and do a live show there with a live audience, which would be great.
Yeah, I think we may have a date around the middle of September, but I'll be speaking to Pooch.
Yeah,
and
Pooch is on the case.
Arranging things.
There's no point telling me this stuff because it goes in one ear and out the other. But there we are. Listen, David, thank you very much indeed for the other night, and great success. Looks like it's coming your way. We'll hopefully see you soon. Take it easy.
Great.
That's David Letham there from Swinford Manor. A great example of British ingenuity and hospitality, has to be said. Now, before we go and say cheerio to Andy, we've got Pooch's Pooch. This is something we do to cheer people up at the end of the bad news that they've had all morning. And this is like, we love dogs here on the show. So I don't know what we've got today, but have a look. That's brilliant. Always does the trick. Always gives you a smile at the end of the show. Andy Preston, great to meet you.
Thank
Good
you,
to
Mike.
see you.
Really,
Thank you for
what a
coming
great
in.
show.
Thank
Love
you very
it.
much.
What a
We're
great
very
show.
proud of it, actually.
Yeah.
Elaine has been producing. Pooch was producing a bit earlier. Thanks to Charlotte for setting it all up. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, at 7 a.m. Kelvin McKenzie coming next for the next couple of hours. You might get the pleasure of watching Andy Burnham unveil his 10-year plan. I can't imagine Kelvin's going to be too keen on it, to be honest. Followed then, of course, by Mark Littlewood with his World Cupper, looking ahead to all the football in the US of A coming up later on. We'll see you tomorrow morning.